Wait, is it working? Oh, I am streaming. But if I'm going to stream, unfortunately, I guess it's going to be like this. Should I get my headphones on? Because you know my fucker's going to be like on me. Why I don't have my headphones on? Let's just check my phone. Yeah, it's so easy for me to just get on and stream. Alright, so we're gonna start a series. It's just called Just Living My Life. Wait, why is it called the Wojak Life for me? Oh no. Oh no. Let me just update the title. Okay. Well, that should have worked. I'd assume it's the same streaming. I don't know if anybody will get upset. Now, I'd like to do two things. One, pay attention to this shit. So I was watching Anthony Fauci's thing. And I don't want to get too much into it. Why do I have another subscriber? Who's this? I don't want to get in too much lately. I just kind of want to see.
If you got hit, even if you were not.
Okay, that sounded like AI for some reason. Okay. Let's see. Man, that's some good shit. Speaking of, I do need to go on restream because if I don't go on restream, I don't see my chat. And when I don't see my chat, people get upset that I'm not there forever. Why do I need to ask YouTubes? Wait, seriously, you could do that now? Jesus. Yeah, because I was watching this shit this morning.
Did not tell the American people the full story. Upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. Let the record record that the witness has refused to answer whether there's a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right. It is true that you're appearing under direction of our subpoena to provide testimony on matters under consideration by the committee, including the origins of COVID-19, risky life sciences research, and your tenure as a federal government employee. Additionally, you've been provided a full and unconditional pardon dated January 19th, 2025, for any offenses against the United States which may have been committed or taken part from January 1st, 2014 through the date of the pardon for a 10-year period, arising from or in any manner related to your service as Director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, as a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, or the White House COVID-19 Response Team, or as Chief Medical Advisor to the President. Have you refused this pardon, or do you have any reason to believe this full and unconditional pardon, this grant of immunity, would somehow require you to plead the Fifth Amendment?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Based on the facts presented, I'm going to direct you to answer the questions. The committee has issued a valid subpoena. They have requested your presence here. The questions are very pertinent to your decision-making as head of NIAID, as well as a chief advisor to the president. Do you still refuse to answer the questions?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let's do this. Dr. Fauci, were you ever made aware of gain-of-function research on monkeypox being conducted at the National Biodefense Analysis and Countermeasure Center and back at Fort Detrick?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, did the CIA ever transfer funds to NIH under an interagency
All right,
agreement?
3 hours on the clock.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, did the NIH ever conduct research for or in coordination with any element of the intelligence community, CIA, ODNI?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The reason why these questions are important is, President Trump has done a ban, and we're glad that he did a ban on gain-of-function research, so we're better off than we were when we had an advocate serving as head of NIAID, an advocate for gain-of-function research. There is still, though, a question, though, whether or not the intelligence community is adhering to that order. There's a question of whether or not gain-of-function research is still ongoing, and these are important questions the American people deserve to know. Dr. Fauci, have you been read into any classified Department of Homeland Security program, any prospective special access program concerning gain-of-function research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
He's just gonna keep saying that.
When we look at the research in China, the gain-of-function research that you've denied was gain-of-function, one of the things that startled the scientists when they saw COVID in the first couple of weeks was when they looked at the sequence of it, they said, oh my God, there's a furin cleavage site in it. And in this particular family of coronaviruses, the sarbecoviruses, they'd never seen this before. They were also startled to look at it and see how it was coded for, what the codons were, and to discover that the codons used out of 36 different possibilities turned out to be the one that was commonly used in gene manipulation by scientists. Dr. Fauci, were the scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology capable of inserting a furin cleavage site into a coronavirus?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
So one of the experiments that was pretty common was they would take the backbone of a SARS virus, and this would be a SARS virus that the backbone itself wasn't that dangerous, but then they would dig through guano, 300 feet underground, bat guano. They'd find other viruses, unknown viruses. They'd take the S protein off of an unknown virus and stick it on a backbone. And then they would infect mice that have humanized cells. And they were trying to discover if they could create a virus that infects humans. Now, many people would say, well, gosh, that doesn't sound like a really good idea to create viruses that don't exist in nature to see if they'll infect human cells. What if one escaped? What if you keep infecting this and do serial passage, you actually adapt the virus to be infectious to humans? So the question is whether or not, Dr. Fauci, the Wuhan Institute of Virology was combining an S protein with one virus with the backbone of others, and could this lead to a virus, maybe it wasn't even predicted, but could it lead to viruses that gained in function and then could lead to a pandemic?
On the advice
That you and others
I'm just wondering if that's what everyone's going to do now. Like, if you get subpoenaed, I feel like everyone's gonna learn from this guy now. They're gonna go like, oh, okay, I'm getting subpoenaed. Well, I'm just gonna do what Dr. Fauci does and just say, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. I mean, this seems like it's just the new standard now.
made,
or at
against
least
this
he's
virus coming from the
creating
lab
it.
is, it couldn't have come from the viruses that have been published. And nobody's really arguing that. I think from the very beginning, people acknowledged that the viruses that have been published.
Oh no, you know what I just thought? Imagine when Hassan finally, or Dan Clancy, finally goes up to the podium when he gets grilled, and and instead of justifying or trying to justify everything that Hassan or any like of his orbiters have said, like literally he just keeps pleading the fifth. Now, I didn't think about that up until now, but that should be a very scary thing. Should we be allowed to plead the fifth? I'm not too sure. I just think that might be something that we should talk about. The new meta of sorts.
Are too far evolutionarily distant from a virus that could have become COVID-19. But what has never been acknowledged by the side who tries to call the other side a conspiracy theory, which is really something you don't usually see in a scientific debate. This is the first time I've ever seen an article printed in Lancet by your friends who called this a conspiracy theory. You know, these are the kind of things you see as a screed on a political, website. You don't really see this in science. But when they release this as being a conspiracy theory, we're wondering that when you do this, when you combine these viruses and are able to grow them in humanized cells, whether or not this kind of risky research, whether you call it gain of function or not, whether you use the definition of gain of function, whether this kind of research should have had more scrutiny. I think in your House testimony, you testified that you've never traveled to China and that you were unaware that anybody at NIH ever examined the labs, that you trusted the Chinese scientists. I think you said that even recently, that with your discretion, you trusted the Chinese scientists. The problem is that even in our country, we trust our scientists. They're good American scientists, probably doing the right thing for America, but at the same time, we oversight to make sure it's not dangerous research, but we also investigate the lab. I believe Fort Detrick was one of our main labs was closed down in the last year or two because of research institute, a research incident that was dangerous with dangerous pathogens. And so the American people would want to know, how could you approve this dangerous research in China, say that you trusted the Chinese scientists, and then in the end, you had to admit that you'd never been there. None of your inspectors had ever been there. Dr. Fauci, had any of the labs where this dangerous research was occurring, were any American lab oversight or lab investigators, did they ever appear in these labs to make sure they were safe labs?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Honestly, I feel like they're both having a really bad time. I feel like this is all pointless. I feel like Dr. Paul is only doing this because that's how he got voted in. Like, I think he just believed all the stupid things that he was saying, and then when he got voted in, like, he started realizing that people, like, the people who voted for him are probably stupid, but they still want him to do this anyways, so that's probably why he's really miserable. I could tell he's miserable. And look at Fauci. He literally just knows that he's getting through this just fine. Like, man. Look at this lady rolling her eyes and shit. But yeah, Fauci, he looks like he's gonna be fine. In fact, he only has to say one phrase, while this guy has to say a mountain of bullshit. So Fauci, I think he looks like he's pretty safe. He's pretty calm. This guy in the back just like, bruh. I don't know. He looks fine. Fauci seems like he's having a great time.
So one of the main theories for those who have looked at this being created in the lab was the idea that could have come from a virus not previously published. Dr. Fauci, are you aware that Dr. Shi, who worked for the Wuhan Institute of Virology, was said to, and I think in her own words, to have over 100 viruses that had not been previously published that could have been a close enough relative to create COVID-19? Are you aware of that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Under your testimony previously, when you denied ever having funded gain-of-function in China, it was so adamant as to be striking, to leave no room for any interpretation of what is or isn't gain-of-function research. But there's another important question. Did you fund gain-of-function research in other biolabs around the world?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The one research project that we do know you did fund is the one that Ron Fouchier did. And it's important to talk about because this sort of was the beginning of the debate over gain of function. This wasn't just me. I wasn't even aware of the debate 10 years ago. This was other scientists. Over 200 scientists at the Cambridge Working Group signed a protest because they didn't think that you should fund the research and they didn't think it should even be funded, published because it's sort of a roadmap as to how to make a bioweapon. So what they did was the avian flu. And this is important. It may be the most important question we get to here today. The avian flu has about 50% mortality for humans. The good news, though, about animal viruses is they don't infect humans very well. It will infect humans, but doesn't go human to human very well. Ron Fouchier, with the money that you provided to him, did an experiment where he caused purposeful mutations to create a new virus, an avian flu that didn't just infect birds well, but actually infected mammals well, went ferret to ferret in an aerosolized manner. People saw this and were aghast, at the decision making.
I know a lot of people are saying, like, oh, this is the end of, like, the public's trust in the medical. I mean, I guess this is just, like, how would I say this? This is the culmination of all of everyone's wild conspiracy theories, just all put into one guy. The Paul, fuck, I forgot his name. What was his name? Paul Rand or something. Shit, how did I forget his name? Senator Paul Rand, I think? Yeah, it's Paul Rand. What am I talking about? Yeah, it's this guy. How did I know and forget his name? Yeah, so pretty much Paul Rand. Rand? Oh my god, Rand. Oh my god, I almost forgot his name again. Okay, here's my thing. He kind of represents all the shitty conspiracy health things that we kind of just made up, like, as a society, and it's put all into one person. And you can't really blame Anthony Fauci for everything. But, like, for example, you can't blame... I don't know. Like, I don't think you can blame him for everything. He is not the arbiter. Like, if I'm the boss, let's say, and people say this or that, and then they give me that information and I say it, and I trust them enough to say it or something like that, I don't think everything he's saying he's doing alone, because a big entity, Fauci isn't just a singular entity. He's just one and a part of a team of people who happen to be at the right place at the right time. Let's just say that. And I feel like Rand Paul is just kind of like all of the sins of things that couldn't be controlled. Because I know there were a lot of lies, and I know there were, I mean, I don't know everything about this situation. I never really followed it about, but I could just see that Rand Paul just represents the frustrations, the manifested all the frustrations we've had in the pandemic, which is kind of crazy we're still talking about it. I get 1 million people, I think it was 1 million people that died, so I guess, yeah, it's a lot of people. But, like, at the same time, it's like, man, I just haven't thought about it. I guess because I've never known somebody that's died. in the pandemic. So I guess there's that. But yeah, I think Paul Rand is basically the guy who is a manifestation of the humans suffering loss, conspiracies, just the ones who didn't desire to be controlled, the ones that the government, they felt that the government was too much on them, and the lockdowns and the rules for thee, not to me, to Paul Rand. And Fauci is just like, I don't know. I wouldn't say he's all the good, but I don't know. I think Fauci just represents, I don't know. I guess I have to keep going and finding that out.
This is when the debate came about, and you wrote in support of this in the Washington Post, and you said, even if a scientist is bitten, even if a pandemic should occur, the knowledge is worth the risks. Do you still stand by that? Would you like to qualify at all whether or not the knowledge of gain of function is worth the risks, particularly in this case, since we now know 15 million people died worldwide? Many people believe this came from the lab. Do you think that the risks are worth the benefits for gain of function research?
15 million people died? That's insane.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
All right. We're going to finish with this question, and it's based really on that statement, that general statement in your support for gain of function, the idea that the benefits outweigh the risks. So there are many other people who disagree. They aren't politicians or not. I don't know what party they're in. David Relman is probably one of the most esteemed, and he is a scientist at Stanford. He, I think, has classified clearance. He's been a consultant to our government probably for a decade or more, and he's written about this publicly. He says the opposite. He said that the risks of this research do not outweigh the benefits. He said the risk we shouldn't do it. Richard Ebright, who's been involved in this debate for 2 decades, says the same thing. Does he really? We really shouldn't be doing this at all. There's a quote also by, I think the Kevin Esvelt quote is at the very end. Kevin Esvelt, who's a CRISPR scientist at MIT, also wrote about this gain of function. I implore every scientist, funder, and nation working in the field.
I think another thing that's really interesting is, for once it feels like when one thing happens, a lot of people think another thing will happen. Andrew Tate just got arrested. That's probably one of the biggest happenings ever, like as far as the political sphere or whatever. Yeah, I know we did some bombing in Iran not too long ago. I think it was today, and then stopped, and now they're back on. I don't even fucking remember. But Andrew Tate was a something happened. So with that in mind, I feel like a lot of people think in their little noodles oh, okay, Andrew Tate got arrested. Now we need to fire back with Fauci. Let's put all of our attention on this. Now, I know this probably was coming for a long time. This was always supposed to happen. But I feel like in people's minds, I think because Andrew Tate had just gotten arrested, I feel like now it would be an interesting time to see somebody else that they don't like, politically adjacent down the aisle, also get arrested, if I might be right here.
Please stop. No more trying to discover or make pandemic-capable viruses. No more experiments likely to disseminate blueprints for plagues. Dr. Fauci, would you like to at least answer this one question for us today and let us know whether or not you've changed your mind on whether or not the benefits of gain-of-function research outweigh the risks?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The chairman has denied your assertion of privilege and directed you to answer, but you nonetheless refuse and stand on privilege despite the existence of the pardon. The committee will have to consider after this hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today. Senator Peters. You're not recognized.
And
You're
that's
not
a cool
recognized.
TV sheet.
If you
That's a cool
you will be
screen.
removed from the proceeding. You are not recognized, and you are not recognized, sir. Sir, you are not recognized. You are not recognized. Security.
To the point where he's kicking
We'll
his lawyer
hold on.
out.
But you will respect these proceedings. You were told not to sit at the table. You're not recognized. You're not
Wait, what?
recognized. Consider after this hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against has denied your assertion the benefits of gain-of-function research outweigh the risks.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights.
This hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today. Senator Peters. You're not recognized. You're not recognized. If you are unruly, you will be removed from the proceeding. You are not recognized, and you are not recognized, sir. Sir, you are not recognized. You are not recognized. Security. We'll hold off, but you will respect these proceedings. You were
Look at all these journalists here. Goddamn.
told not to sit at the table.
They all look really young.
You insist on sitting at the table, and we told you you would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir. You are being
They
disruptive.
all look
Would you behave this way in a
stupid,
courtroom?
young.
No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises. So I would say, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word. I said, sit quietly. You are not recognized. Another word and you're gone.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say.
He is not recognized by the committee or the chair. If he speaks again, he will be removed from the room. This testimony is from Anthony Fauci.
He can
This is
remove him
not a game
himself.
against
He can remove him himself. That'd be crazy. Like, what if he didn't get removed from the room?
lawyers. He can advise. His lawyers can give him advice. He's got a half dozen here. They're all allowed to talk to him. All right.
It's just crazy. You can see how happy he is just to have all this power. He literally feels like, it literally feels like he thinks he's a god now. Like, look at all this power. I have all this power. I am fucking Superman, and this is my court. This is my fucking court. Don't tell me shit. Like, he's really exerting, because power just means certainty. No matter what he does, he is certain that he's going to be okay. So if he sees any little bit of just slight that his certainty is going to go away, boy, he's going to put that power on your ass. It is going to be belt to ass with him. I don't know. Maybe his barber probably should have given him a little fresh cut, man. Like, what the fuck is that, bruh?
Right? But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered. For a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Yo! He seems like he's looking so good. Wow.
Let the record state that
Wow.
Fauci will still have the advice of the other half a dozen attorneys that he brought along today. Senator Peters.
Brother,
Thanks, sir.
really?
The COVID-19 pandemic.
Brother, really
is not the
just...
first or the last
Wow,
public
hold
health crisis,
on.
to impact
Go
our
back. I think he did the Squidward walk.
Let the record state that Dr. Fauci will still have the advice of the other half a dozen attorneys that he brought along today. Senator Peters.
That's crazy.
The COVID-19 pandemic is not the first or the last public health crisis to impact our nation. In December 2022, I released a report that identified significant failures in our federal government's preparedness and initial response to COVID-19. This report contained 17 key findings. It's a very large
Like
report.
12
Right.
other lawyers,
It contains
though?
17 key findings
Crazy.
and corresponding recommendations, including the need to invest in sustainable domestic manufacturing capabilities for critical medical supplies, build the infrastructure needed to surge testing capacity for infectious diseases, and robustly fund public health emergency preparedness and responses across all levels of government. Unfortunately, multiple administrations, including the current Trump administration, have failed to fund or to reform our health preparedness. This is something that I would hope the committee in the future would investigate. It needs to be taken a look at. It also feels like a new public health threat is hitting us every month. There's a foodborne parasite affecting thousands of people in Michigan and across the country, and our federal agencies still haven't fully pinned down the source of that outbreak.
Okay, that's
Measles
Trump's
cases in
fault.
this country are at the highest they've been in 35 years. More children are getting sick and even hospitalized from this preventable disease. Over 1,000 people have died from the Ebola virus in Africa, and we don't know how widespread this crisis actually is. We have a hantavirus scare on the
Dude, how is Ebola not dead yet?
cruise ship, and though it hasn't made headlines in the way that the screwworm threatening our food security has, I remain concerned about bird flu that is also spreading and could one day cause a pandemic. This is also something this committee should be investigating and holding hearings on. Since January 2025, the Trump administration has taken a number of actions to drastically weaken our ability to fight infectious diseases and biological threats that endanger Americans. These actions are both incomprehensible and are also inexcusable. They include slashing funding for public health and infectious disease research, canceling contracts for cutting-edge vaccine technology, shutting agencies responsible for tackling infectious diseases around the world, firing thousands of federal employees with keeping our communities and our medicines and our food supply safe, and injecting political appointees in what should be non-political grant-making functions. That is something this committee should be looking at. I could go on. I could go on all the topics that we need to be looking at moving forward to protect this country. We're not doing that in this committee. That's what this committee was designed to do. It's what it has done throughout history. It has done it in a bipartisan way. We should get back to that and think about the future of this country and keeping this country safe. When a crisis like COVID-19 strikes, we have an obligation to examine what went right and what went wrong to provide accountability for the American people. Congress certainly has done that. Between the House and Senate, nearly 20 different committees, including this committee, as I mentioned, have conducted oversight of the COVID-19 pandemic, conducting transcribed interviews, holding dozens of hearings, and released more than 10 reports. Today's exercise, unfortunately, is a stark departure from those largely bipartisan, legitimate efforts. The chairman has shut the minority out of participating equally in these efforts, withheld information, selectively released documents, actions that completely undermine the credibility of this investigation. I will enter a record without objection, Mr. Chairman, a letter that I sent to you that detailed all of those areas that we have concern with and where we were shut out.
Without objection.
We'll provide other details as well. I think today's hearing unfortunately does real damage. It's attempting to turn one person into the scapegoat for a crisis that hundreds of officials across both the Trump and the Biden.
Oh my God. He actually said it. Yeah, he really, okay. That's what I was thinking. They are really turning him to just a scapegoat.
Administration were responsible for handling. And it does so in a way that people that are facing death threats. This is only going to unfortunately deter other scientific experts.
You just say death threats.
The way that people that are facing death threats.
Bro, how many death threats actually work? I would love to know how many death threats actually work. I swear, everybody now, like, if you get a death threat, I feel like that's like a badge of honor at this point. Like, if you get a death threat, bro, I feel like that's the new somebody ordered pizza to my house. I guess maybe it's like traumatizing at first, but like over time, it should feel like a badge. Like, hey, I got a death threat. Okay, how do I say this? Like, if you did something bad and got a death threat, yeah, I would make it like bad. But like, I don't know. If you do something that, you know, could be controversial and you get a death threat, I don't feel like the death threat really goes through. I don't know.
This is only going to unfortunately deter other scientific experts from public service to understand that this is what they would have to go through as they provide their advice to us. We're not going to make our nation safer, and I hope that we can restore, by doing these kinds of activities, but I hope that we can restore our legitimate bipartisan oversight that's going to help strengthen our public health and pandemic preparedness and other homeland priorities. That's what this committee needs to focus on. It hasn't the last year and a half. Let's hope it does in the future. Thank you.
Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Fauci, I hope the American people listen very carefully to Chairman Paul's opening statement. I think it's a stunning indictment of the actions you've taken that have been so destructive to global health. I certainly understand why you needed a pardon.
These look like every single Marvel villains, like, from the MCU, just straight up all the guys with suits.
I certainly understand why, on the advice of counsel, you're not answering any questions, because I think it would be almost impossible for you to answer the questions truthfully without really demonstrating what you did, your culpability, self-incriminating. We have, all of us, has prepared a lot. I've been deluged with questions to ask Dr. Anthony Fauci. There are so many legitimate questions that deserve answers, and now you're not willing to provide those answers.
So if you call one senator enough, I think you can make any of them go crazy. He looks like he's been called about the same question like a gazillion times. You could kind of like see it. Like, you could see it in his face, bro. Like, he is so done with the same questions. So on his next campaign or whatever, he could be like, yes, I asked these questions. This is what I could do. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like this is a result of multiple people calling one person, multiple people calling another person that's above him, and then getting above him, and then him getting told the same thing.
There are so many legitimate questions that deserve answers, and now you're not willing to provide those answers. So with my limited time, I'm going to talk about things that my investigation revealed that have not been adequately answered.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get some more milk. Guys, don't drink coffee or anything. Just drink fucking anything. Just drink straight up milk. It's actually really good.
Quite honestly, haven't been adequately covered by the legacy media. I'll kind of combine the questions into kind of one, but I certainly, let's put up the last COVID chart. I was warned pretty early on about the dangers of the experimental gene therapy that you've called a vaccine, but it really falls under the definition of gene therapy. So I was going to ask you, were you carefully monitoring the safety surveillance systems like VAERS and VSafe that literally were deluged with complaints? Currently, worldwide, there have been almost 1.7 million adverse events reported to the VAERS system.
Whoa.
Of those, over 39,000 were deaths. And of those deaths, 24% occur on the day of vaccination within 1 or 2 days. 24%, which, by the way, just happens to be the same percentage that a Rasmussen poll pointed out the American public believe 24% of the American public believe they know somebody who died of the experimental gene therapy. So again, I was certainly interested in asking you whether or not you were following this as carefully as I was. It was not my responsibility to follow safety surveillance systems, but I did. And by the way, when I published, this is actual government information. When I published it and people had me on their shows, they would be censored by Facebook. They would be deplatformed. I think largely at the behest of the actions you took to make sure that disinformation wasn't spread. This wasn't disinformation. This was the truth. So I was going to ask you whether you knew Dr. Marks. I think you do know him. He's the head of CBER. He's the man who's in charge of approving vaccines and surveilling for the safety. My investigation shows that on March 1st of 2021, less than 3 months after the emergency use authorizations, he was warned by Dr. Anna Scharsman, data mining expert, that the algorithm they were using to analyze VAERS data was going to hide in mass safety signals. 26 days later, and 3 months consecutively after that, they did data runs with a new algorithm that unmasked the safety signals. They showed dozens of safety signals, including sudden cardiac death, cerebral artery occlusion, basal ganglia stroke, agonal rhythm, Bell's palsy, and pulmonary infarction. Your diaries now show that you actually suffered pulmonary infarction in, I think, probably June 20 occlusion, basal. Your diaries now show that you actually suffered pulmonary infarction in, I think, probably June 2021. I was just wondering whether it ever went through your mind that maybe that injection, all those boosters you took, might have caused that.
Why does he look so happy? He's like, maybe this is the last time I have to go through this with everybody else.
And the question I was going to, and I'll ask this question. Were you ever made aware of the fact that Peter Marks was warned that the algorithm was going to hide the safety signals? And were you told that senior FDA officials were given shown dozens of safety signals associated with the COVID injection?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Next area I want to go through is in that same month.
Can't he just get a little button to do that? why does he have to go through the whole thing to say it? Button. Say it. Button. Shit. I should probably make that a sound clip. That'd be hilarious.
To March 2021. An employee at NIH, Dr. Nath, led a team of researchers who were diagnosing and treating individuals who never had COVID but were severely injured by the genetic therapy injections. Dr. Nath told those individuals,
It's like sitting there twiddling his thumbs.
we want to make sure that we gather all the information and then release it to doctors so they can treat people like yourself. There was a concerted effort, and I'll enter this in the record. It appears inside NIH to quash Dr. Nath's publishing that study. It finally was put on a preprint server telling no one, I think about May of 2022. I think what's noteworthy about this is Dr. Nath told the injured participants that early treatment, early intervention was crucial for them to be treated. And yet within the NIH, they were questioning what was Dr. Nath doing. They didn't want to publish that because, and I want to take time searching for it, because publishing it would create vaccine hesitancy, which is what we continue to hear time and time again, is the reason they didn't promote they lied about the safety signals they were seeing. Throughout the pandemic, I always push early treatment. We've got things in here where you were really concerned about remdesivir because it was untested, but hydroxychloroquine, it was an approved drug. Maybe some safety issues, but we had a great deal of experience with it. All of a sudden, you had the Surgisphere study. It was retracted within 2 weeks because it was completely false. Totally blew up the use of hydroxychloroquine. And then when it comes to ivermectin, which, by the way, because I was contacted by so many people, I referred them to doctors who actually had the courage and compassion to treat vaccine-injured individuals. It works. But I was going to ask you whether you were involved in the FDA attack on ivermectin. You had a interview on CNN on August 29th of 2021, where, again, I just don't want to take time to find the exact quote, but said there's no evidence that ivermectin is helpful. On that exact same day, and I've got the studies right here. There was a website that was tracking the random controlled studies.
I got all these papers!
Showing 67% efficacy of ivermectin. The same day you say there's no evidence, there's all kinds of evidence. Loved ones had to go to hospitals, had to sue hospitals. Just would you try it? So I would want to know, to what extent were you involved in sabotaging hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and did you do that because you knew the only way you get emergency use authorization for these drugs, these experimental gene therapy, was if there's no effective treatment, you can get the emergency use authorization. So is that why you helped sabotage these cheap generic drugs in favor of remdesivir, which, by the way, nurses, are you aware of the fact that nurses called it run, death is near?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let me end
Oh,
this
he has a
one,
little
because
paper.
This just came to light. We've got 11 million pages of documents. We also have other people who were in the room. But now you actually lied to your own diary. On March 27, 2020,
You lied to your own diary?
Letter to governors outlining
Look, you lied in your own diary. He's like, man, that was pretty funny. Bro, I'm gonna lie. So, let me get this straight, okay? So, he didn't recommend those compared to those things compared to what he wanted. So, he told his diary, oh, Oh my god, like if I'm gonna lie to my own diary, so if they ever find his diary, the diary will vouch that I don't even fucking know. That's so weird. I don't think anyone would lie in their own diary, would they?
Create spread
Weird.
virus in low-risk counties. This was half-baked and never shown to Deb or I before it was sent out. So we have evidence that, in fact, you were fully aware of it, and certainly proved if not authored it. So I was just simply asking, I mean, is that true? I mean, did you literally lie to your own diary? Did you know of that letter sent out to
Did
governors
you
about reopening
lie to your
County?
own
Yeah,
diary?
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask you to ask the witness to just answer that one simple question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hassan.
Thank you.
What if he sang it?
Dr. Fauci, I want to start by thanking you for more than 50 years of service to this country at the National Institutes of Health. And it is unfortunate that you have been put in the position that you are in today. And it must be enormously frustrating to know that this hearing is designed to entrap you. It must be very frustrating for your attorneys to hear the chair's mischaracterization of the legal issues and posture that impact your decisions at the witness table today. Meanwhile, I was going to ask you a series of questions about things that are relevant right now to the people of the United States about the state of public health in this country. Since President Trump took office in 2025, more than 4,500 cases of measles have been reported. That is more cases in the year and a half since Donald Trump has been president than were reported from 2000 to 2024 combined. Children are dying because there has been increased vaccine hesitancy, fueled by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and frankly, his entire administration. Thousands of people in the United States of America have been sickened by a foodborne parasite, and the outbreak is nowhere near under control, as staffing at the FDA and other critical public health entities has been slashed.
Apache's like, what do you want me to do about it? I got Trump telling me not to do shit.
By Russell Vought and Elon Musk. Last year, the National Institutes of Health awarded 201 fewer grants compared to the previous years. 207, I am corrected. Compared to previous years. As those grants were either canceled or delays, especially
Damn,
at the
she
beginning of
almost got
Trump's administration,
fat clipped.
I can tell my
Imagine if no one corrected her fact. What would have happened? Do you think she would have been in huge trouble or something? Like she would have gotten her own grilling? 205. No, it's 207. 207. If you say fucking 205, we're finished. We're cooked. Everyone's gonna vote us out. It's over. Don't ever say 205 again, okay? It's 207 plus.
colleagues what the impact was on people in New Hampshire, on scientists in New Hampshire, on clinical trials in New Hampshire, where people's cancer treatment was interrupted because Elon Musk and Russell Vought know better, they say, than the people at NIH about what to fund. And because they did some sort of word search, it seems, for some of the grants, and boy, oh boy, if you were studying rural health in New Hampshire and trying to understand how to better engage people who need health care in rural America, that was off the table. America is losing researchers and scientists to other countries because researchers and scientists, highly trained, highly qualified, invested in often by the American taxpayer, are finding the hostility from this administration so strong that it interferes with their science, and they want to pursue science wherever.
That's what you get for centering fucking Republicans, bruh.
That science takes them. I also sit on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. We have had a number of hearings with nominees recently to fill.
How is anything being censored these days? I swear. Everything gets fucking leaked. Like, is it just me? Or is there not a day go by that, like, literally something is not leaked? Like, I don't even know what the word censor is anymore. I feel like, I don't even feel like it's possible to censor anything. I feel like everything just has to be leaked. I mean, you literally have those journalists sitting down there with their cameras. Like, Jesus. Like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of keeping anything secret, you know? It's just gonna get leaked.
Spots. One of those nominees is Dr. Erica Schwartz, a brilliant woman, medical degree, biomedical engineering degree. I think she also told us she has a law degree and a master's in public health. She was a 2-star admiral in the United States Navy, an experienced doctor. And yet, when I asked her if she would push back at Secretary Kennedy, if he instructed her to suspend the promotion of the flu vaccine as he did some point in the last few months, there's an email to prove it, she couldn't answer that question. She either could not, would not, or had been bullied into evading a question about whether she, as the director of CDC, would stand up to Secretary Kennedy the most unqualified Secretary of Health and Human Services this country has ever seen, and more than unqualified, somebody who pursued...
Okay, but how do you know he's the most unqualified one you've ever seen? Did you go and look at the history of every single other one? I'd like to know, Sen Hassan. I'd like to know if you really think you really know, because I don't know shit about the guy. I don't know shit about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or whatever. Like, I don't know him either. But can you hold that statement? Is it 205 or is it 207? I don't believe anybody anymore. I don't believe anybody anymore. You know why? You know why? Because you just made a bold claim about somebody based off something that you probably don't know. I want to know, if I was on that seat, I'd be, excuse me, Senator Hassan, excuse me, but are you sure that is true? Is you sure that is true? Do you know if he's actually the worst one? Have you studied the other ones? Let's get down to the lore here. I'm not sure. It's fucking crazy. Just so many like crazy statements.
Conspiracy theories, degrades people with disabilities, and continues to promote disproved science.
You know, I bet there's always
That's
been
the state
conspiracy
of healthcare
theories
public health
and
in this country right now, not to mention the $1 trillion or so of cuts to the Medicaid program that is decimating healthcare in my state and decimating it around the country, not to mention the refusal of my colleagues and this administration to extend critical tax cuts for people who are trying to afford insurance on the Affordable Care Act. I just was at one of my community health clinics, and they are reporting fewer and fewer people coming in for care, disrupting care because they can no longer afford health insurance. And that is impacting, of course, the revenue stream to the community health clinic, their ability to hire and pay people, their ability to take care of their community. That's what I wish we were having hearings about in this committee and in the health committee. That's what I wish we were trying to address in a bipartisan way. But instead, we are here in an attempt to entrap you because you had a distinguished career trying to put Americans' public health first. With that, I yield.
Senator Lankford.
Chairman, thank you.
damn, you didn't really have to say anything.
Dr. Fauci, thanks for coming today. I know you're invoking your Fifth Amendment right, which you have the right to be able to do constitutionally, but thanks for coming and be a part of this. There are a lot of issues and a lot of questions that have come up, and hopefully in some day in the future, we'll be able to get all this clarity to be able to pull together. There were over 1 million Americans that died from COVID. You know that well. You were tracking the numbers literally every single day, those affected and those that died from the earliest days. There are a lot of lessons that we've got to learn from this, that we should put into history to be able to determine what happens in the future. How do we respond in the future? How do we deal with something like this again? It was uncharted territory for everyone. But I would tell you, countless families, including my own, watched a loved one die behind glass.
You know what's going to happen in the future? And I'm already seeing this now with the whole lettuce thing and the diarrhea thing. Nobody's going to kick her, man. I think if there's something else like a COVID again, I think people are going to be so traumatized by an event like this that they're just going to go outside. They're not going to wear masks. They're not going to do any of that. You know, the mistake was you guys tried to have some America is just a different society. It's a society that doesn't really like government. And COVID was one of the times when government was really put down on the people's neck. And the thing is, I think other countries made it out better because they respected their government more. But because Americans did not respect their government, especially after everything that happened with Trump, I think, and you could even go back to the 70s and say, well, Nixon was the first time, you know, it started from Nixon, it went downhill, and now I think you're never ever going to have government have that much power again. I think that power that the government had was, I think it was a dream for the government to have that much power. I think they've always wanted it. I think that's what the Democrats always wanted. It was in their wet dreams to have something like that. They got it, they got the high, and now it's over, and now you're affecting real, like, people who actually, you know, helped try to make things better, I would assume. Because I don't think Fauci was incompetent, otherwise he wouldn't be here. But I don't also think Fauci's stupid, otherwise he wouldn't be here. It's just like being Hoover in the Great Depression. You were just there at the wrong place at the wrong time and with a crazy situation that was uncontrollable. And that's the thing. It's just the Great Depression of medical things. And that's just the crazy thing. You know, that's just what I feel like. And I just feel like bad, you know. I feel bad about that whole thing.
Blaster through a screen because we couldn't get access to them. Children couldn't get to school. People missed their prom.
or graduation ceremonies. There were lots of things that happened that dramatically changed the future of the country. The mental health issues that we have continued to deal with from the isolation have been profound. Even something as simple as children that wore masks or were around adults wearing masks for all that time are slower in learning language now because they couldn't watch someone's lips moving, and so they're slower in that. Amazingly enough, churches and places of worship were forced to be closed down. There were even churches that met where the pastor preached in the parking lot and the congregants all met in their cars with windows up, and police came and scattered them and said, you can't be here. The simple act of social distancing became an issue. As everyone guessed, what's the right distance to be away from someone else? Literacy rates
was
have declined.
6 feet.
All these things are results, not to mention the loss of lives and the health experiences that have been out there for many Americans. So there are legitimate questions. I want to be able to raise some of those to be able to walk through some of this because it has been very, very challenging. As we've gone through some of your notes and your diary and other things that are out there, we're trying to be able to pull bits and pieces of things to be able to learn lessons. On May the 6th, 2020, you wrote at that time, I had a conversation with Robert Redfield, as you know well, was then the director of CDC, about the fact that greater than 1 million children worldwide have missed their measles vaccination because of the shutdown. You stated, this is terrible and needs to be addressed, since on that basis alone, there would be far more excess deaths from measles among children than coronavirus deaths among children. I need to bring this up to the TF, the task force. Did you ever have an opportunity to bring up the potential of measles deaths among children and an infection rate going around the world from measles based on the fact that so many children would not get their measles vaccine because of the shutdown?
I'm sorry, Senator, but on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It is your right to do. One of the big issues that's really coming up is on the
Yeah,
lab.
at least we respected it.
This was greatly discussed
respected
about
it.
whether this came from a lab or whether this came from nature. There are obvious issues and differences between the two. To be able to know this, you had a lot of
Why does he look like vampire Matt Smith? He looks like Matt Smith got his blood sucked.
conversation on this. Scientists around the world were in conversation on this.
He just looks like a
There are different
vampire.
statements that you even made in your private notes and your public notes on it.
Like,
In January
do
26th of
suck your
2020, this is
blood.
before we had even our first tragic death of coronavirus in the United States. You wrote, it now appears using epi data that the genomic data, the first infection was in early December and was not connected to the market, which was the big rumor that was out there, was this wet market in China. We know the market was not the source, it was the amplifier. On January the 31st, you wrote about a phone call. You wrote the people on the phone felt the mutations around the furin cleavage site of the spike protein could not have occurred naturally since it would require an evolutionary jump that they found nowhere in bat isolates. They bring up the possibility this could have been deliberately inserted and either accidentally released or deliberately released by a crazy person in the lab, the former being the most likely. February the 1st, same year, 2020. This is again still before our first death. There was not total agreement about the likelihood of deliberate insertion. Ron said he was sure that this could occur naturally, and we should not waste our time and divert our effort to pursue this. This is expected of him since he was the original gain of function person with Yoshi. Also, Christian was withdrawn.
Damn,
rest
look at
felt
the turtle
deliberate
chin.
insertion was possible, and given the fact that Dr. Jingling Shi at the University of Wuhan has been working for years in gain of function in coronaviruses to allow adaptation of the spike protein to bind to the human ACE2 receptor, we could not let this go. That's a remarkable statement for February the 1st of 2020. When there hadn't even been the first death here, but we knew something was moving. You knew well that something was moving. You identified February the 1st, before any of us had ever heard of the Wuhan lab, not only the Wuhan lab in the conversation, but literally the scientist that you named in your own notes, the lead scientist that was there. It's interesting to me on that. And the questions I was going to ask you was just your background and knowledge about the Wuhan lab and Dr. Shi and all the details. I'm aware of.
These people are so lucky it's not the fucking Black Plague, bruh. These guys are kind of stupid enough to probably get killed by it 3-5 times over.
Where you have been on trying to be able to plead your Fifth Amendment right, which is your right to be able to do. But I also want to be able to find out some facts to be able to help us for the future on this. The Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in May of 2020 put out a classified document that has only been recently unclassified on this that had this statement: we assess all the necessary conditions for an accidental release of a laboratory-modified coronavirus, specifically a coronavirus adapted to recognize human cell receptors, were present at the Chinese Wuhan Institute of Virology.
If I was Fauci, I'd be like, oh my god, what are you talking about?
In mid to late 2019. Now, the question that I have for you is, this is May the 27th.
I want to do...
You wrote on January the 26th of 2020, we should be allowed to send our CDC epidemiologists to China to work with them so they could see the data firsthand. You also wrote in February 12th, 2020, that you had great concerns about the World Health Organization because it depends greatly on China, and as you stated, often bows to them. Now, this is a really important issue that we've got to resolve for the future. It's not just our cooperation with Chinese scientists, it's our acknowledgement that China covered up their data, wouldn't allow our scientists to be able to come in. They cleaned up the wet market. They cleaned up the other areas. They wouldn't allow you to get access to all the other scientists who are there, including their health records, what happened to them, or even all the sequencing that they had done in advance. For the future of our research and our cooperation with any scientists around the world, I think it's really important that we resolve, if we're going to fund research and cooperate with you, we've got to have certain things from you. If things go sideways, we've got to have access to all information in all places. You were noting not only that China was affecting the World Health Organization and that China was bending them to their will, and so the World Health Organization was putting out data that you saw, at least at that point, as being from a Chinese perspective, covering up what was going on, but you also noted we weren't able to get access to all this information. We've got to be able to figure this out for the future, to be able to make sure that research that is done, we have access to all information if something goes sideways at some point, which clearly it did at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and that being, as was noted by many people, the only lab in the world that was doing research like this that had a lower standard of actually their security standards there than many other labs around the world, yet they were doing this very dangerous research. What can we gain? And what advice could you give us to say, in a future setting, we've got to make sure that we actually get information from people and we can be guaranteed that we're going to get that insight? Yes, sir.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
I yield back.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to the dark days of the coronavirus pandemic, one of the darkest days or times in our history. Hospitals were overflowing. Navy medical ships were docked in the Hudson River. Emergency rooms were forced into unprecedented triaging. During the worst week of the pandemic, which happens to have been the last week of President Trump's first term, more than 25,000 Americans died of COVID-19. Easy to forget those dark days. But for the past 18 months, the Trump administration has been engaged in a campaign to rewrite this history. And today's proceeding, I fear, is part of that effort, one of the darkest days in our Senate's history. The Trump administration has launched a baseless set of smears against vaccines that help pull us out of that public health crisis, vaccines that are undoubtedly President Trump's greatest accomplishment. It has slashed funding to local public health departments that were on the front lines of the pandemic, and those healthcare workers are heroes. It has disparaged those heroes as woke or wasteful, and it has used a politicized Department of Justice to target the researchers who helped us track and understand the novel virus. Today's hearing is another page in that playbook, sadly, tragically. Dr. Fauci, you've spent 5 decades in public service, including nearly 4 decades in leadership at the National Institutes of Health, helping to conquer COVID-19, but also HIV, swine flu, Zika, Ebola, and other epidemics with real life results,
AIDS.
saving human lives. Put aside all the flowery rhetoric that we hear in the United States Senate. Dr. Fauci has saved lives, as have public health officials in the United States and throughout the world. And today, we are demeaning and degrading their life-saving service. Republicans are eager to rebrand.
I'm glad he gets a break.
In order to distract from their own failure to protect Americans from soaring healthcare costs. They've been rising astronomically in the last couple of years. And
Did these people hire Luigi?
Which has caused cyclospora to spread, and resurgent measles as a result of the anti-vaccine policy. This hearing is the culmination of a years-long crusade, which started more than 6 years ago when Dr. Fauci dared to contradict President Trump. The campaign to vilify you, Dr. Fauci, is just one part of this larger campaign against science and facts, a campaign that has made Americans less safe. It is shameful that in a country like ours,
I don't even remember what the guy last question asked. I don't even remember.
Fauci
I don't even think Fauci remembers.
has experienced persistent threats to his life.
Rand Paul's like, you took everything from me. And then Paul's like,
His attorney has been gagged.
Fauci's like, I don't even
Thrown
know
out of
who
this
you
hearing.
are.
But he has written a letter to the chairman that is an explanation for the reasons why Dr. Fauci is, in fact, invoking his constitutional right. It is a right. And I would ask that this letter from David Schertler and Danny Onato be made a part of the record if there's no
Without objection.
His attorney has also issued a statement within the last half hour, I believe, that sets forth, again, the reasons that he is here to help protect his client's rights. And I would ask that that statement be made part of the record as well, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
Let's be very clear. The Fifth Amendment is a right of everyone appearing before an authority like this one. It should be respected. And the reason that Dr. Fauci has invoked it, in the words of his
The
attorney,
largest jawline ever.
quote, during and after the COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Fauci appeared at least a dozen times for congressional hearings in the Senate alone in answer to questions about the very issues on which you purport to seek information. He has been thoroughly transparent and consistent in providing factual information to Congress, and he is deeply familiar with the processes and protocols of sharing information with the legislative branch. And then referring to the chairman, this years-long public crusade against Dr. Fauci makes one thing clear.
Why does
This
Fauci
is
look
not a
like
series
he's
of
about to get
information from Dr. Fauci
executed?
in a transcribed interview for a valid
Oh,
legislative purpose.
thank
You
you.
are
I know I'm
single-mindedly
gonna die,
fixated
but
on Dr. Fauci, seeing Dr. Fauci prosecuted for imaginary crimes, and you are so invested in that outcome that you have created a personal brand around it. Those are the words of his attorney, and he cites as well the statements of the chairman, which indicate a clear intent that the result of this proceeding be a prosecution.
I'm doing the Fauci right now.
Quote, the power of some of us must be used for
What the-
good, like putting Fauci in jail. That's from December 23, 2025.
Fauci ain't going
I
to
wanna give him
jail.
A subpoena and a jail cell, also from December of 2025. The first was 2024.
That lady in
Those
the
kinds of statements
back
by the chairman of
looks
the committee
ghastly.
certainly provide a well-founded fear that the proceeding underway is simply an effort to trap Dr. Fauci in some kind of criminal wrongdoing.
Damn, she got
That is not
bags
the
under
purpose
her
of a congressional
bag.
hearing.
She
That's
must
the
never get
valid
any
purpose of a congressional hearing.
sleep.
During some of the dark days in this body, under Senator Joe McCarthy, it became standard operating procedure to seek that kind of prosecutorial objective. We should not be part of a rerun of that kind of effort. This attempt to rebrand one of the most challenging times in our nation's history is a short-sighted act of desperation that will leave us less prepared for the next pandemic. It is an insult to the memory of more than 1 million Americans who died from COVID-19. If there are valid scientific questions about the origins of this pandemic, COVID-19, about the kinds of steps that we're taking to counter it, about the need for more preparation, they should certainly be addressed, but not in a show trial, not as part of a continuing vendetta against a single individual.
Pouch, you can't
And
say
unfortunately, I
shit.
fear that is what we are seeing today. America deserves
He doesn't
better.
even nod
Thank you,
his
Mr. Chairman.
head. He can't even
In no
nod his
courtroom in
head.
America can you have your witness plead the Fifth Amendment, then your attorney gets to testify. That's what that letter is. The attorney's complaining and testifying, saying, he didn't do it, the prosecution's unfair. You don't get to do that. That's one thing you give up when you take the Fifth Amendment. You say, I'm not going to testify, I'm not going to give you any information. You don't then get to put your lawyer forward to justify it. He can do it in the press, but you can't come and testify. He was not invited to testify, and he was out of order, and it was appropriate to have him ejected. Senator
Chairman Paul, thank you for doing this. I think I know in my state people have been asking questions about Dr. Fauci for years. So, Dr. Fauci, your entry has made clear that you love being a hero, a celebrity, and here having the eyes of the world upon you. You loved every newspaper profile, every photo shoot, every fancy dinner with the elites. To many Americans who lost family members, who lost trust in our federal government, you're not a hero. Unfortunately, you're a villain. You made yourself the story and abandoned the American people to serve your own ego. To begin, I'd like to talk about your relationship with David Morales.
Jobs.
He was the senior advisor in the NIA
He looks like
office of
Lex
the director,
Luthor.
your office for 16 years. He was your friend. He was a frequent guest at your house. You reportedly co-authored over 50 scientific articles with him. You turned to him first right after COVID-19 first occurred. Earlier this year, the Department of Justice charged him with conspiracy against the United States, in addition to other charges as part of conspiracy to conceal information and falsify records to suppress alternative theories about the origins of COVID-19. Now, you've publicly kicked this man to the curb, saying Dr. Morantz was not an advisor to me on institute policy or other substantive issues. So let's start with the use of personal Gmail accounts and Dave Morantz's relationship with Peter Daszak. Dave Morantz tells Peter Daszak, president of Equal Alliance, and you've got this in front of you, it's Exhibit 1, and it's already in the record as part of this. It says, quote, P.S. I forgot to say that there's no worry about FOIA. I can either send stuff to Tony on his private Gmail or hand it to him at work or at his house. He is too smart to let colleagues send him stuff that could cause trouble. Dr. Fauci, did Dr. Morantz's relationship with Peter Daszak concern you? Yes or no?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did Dave Morantz ever bring documents to your house?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you ever receive a text about your work at NIAID to your personal cell phone?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Can you just say
Did any
plead the
text about
fifth?
your work at NID that went to your personal cell phone ever become part of federal records?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you maintain a personal email account while serving as director?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you ever receive work-related communications on that Gmail account from David Morantz?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you preserve any
It'd be
work-related
so
communications
crazy
on
the
that Gmail account from
one
David Morantz?
time he says yes.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to
It
the
goes,
Constitution.
yes!
David Morantz ever provided documents outside of those two ways that
He
would violate
said
any of the
yes!
compliance?
On the advice
He
of counsel, I
said
respectfully decline to
no!
answer based upon my
It's
rights
like
under the Fifth
they will
Amendment
get
to
the
the Constitution.
blades after him.
Now let's look at two other communications. You emailed David Morantz January 26, 2020.
Get him!
It is important that I speak with you tonight. Please call me at home. This is part of Exhibit 2 that you have in front of you. This email is sent the same day, the exact same day you write in an internal document. Quote, now we know the market was not the source, it was the amplifier, unquote.
You know who's going to get more
Would you call
views
the
than me?
origins of COVID-19 a substantive
People
issue?
who actually know
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon
what
my
they're
rights under the Fifth
fucking
Amendment to the
talking
Constitution.
about, whereas
discuss
I'm just
COVID-19
like
origins
that
and
guy
Morantz
who
on
doesn't
phone?
know. But I'm wondering
On
if
the
like
advice
the
of counsel, I
population would be
respectfully
more
decline to
with
answer based
me
upon
on
my
this
rights under the
because
Fifth
I
Amendment to
bet
the
nobody
Constitution.
knows what the fuck is
Now let's
going
take a closer look
on.
at the last time you testified before Congress. This is part of what you have in front of you is Exhibit 4, which is part of the record. In June 2024, you testified to Dr. Morantz, quote, was not an advisor to me on institute policy or other substantive issues. Furthermore, his office is located in a different building from that of the NIAID director, unquote. Is that still your testimony today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So today under oath, your testimony remains that Dr. Morantz was not an advisor to you on institute policy or substantive matters.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Now, I've got Exhibit 5, which you have in front of you. On October 24, 2021, David Morantz texted you to provide information about and advocate for the controversial EcoHealth Alliance grant. You thank him and tell him you will check the information. Would you agree that this shows an advisory relationship between David Morantz and yourself?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you agree that you two were discussing a substantive issue?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
If documentary evidence establishes that Dr. Morantz advised you regarding EcoHealth Alliance, COVID origins, or grant policy, then your June 2024 testimony would have been inaccurate, correct?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Is there any document in your possession today that would contradict your prior congressional testimony?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Have you deleted, destroyed, or instructed anyone to destroy records after learning Congress is investigating these matters?
On the advice
Bitch,
of
why
counsel,
the fuck would I do
respectfully decline to answer
that?
based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Are you aware of anyone who did?
On the
No!
advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
As you know, Dr. Morantz now faces charges related to destroying records while you distance yourself from him. Is that fair to a decades-long friend?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
When is the last time you spoke to him?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully
advice of
decline to
counsel.
answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the
On
Constitution.
my advice
In
to
hindsight, are you disappointed in how
counsel,
you handled COVID? Do you have any regrets?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the
on
Constitution.
the advice of
Dr. Fauci, I'm
counsel,
closing
I
with this.
respectfully.
Here's how you impacted my family and people close to me.
I mean,
have
I
daughters
can't-
with children.
I can't
You
even
can't imagine
say
the questions
this.
they had around vaccines for their kids and themselves, and the pressure, the unbelievable pressure to make the right decision for their health. I can tell you, pregnant women who worked with me were so scared because every time they went to the doctor, they were told something different about taking the vaccine, and you caused this. Imagine being a mom trying to protect their kids, or an expectant mother trying to figure out what to do. Every 3 weeks, a doctor tells you a new set of guidance on a vaccine. The haphazard information you released and pushed on the American people with little research is appalling. And why there's so much distrust in our institutions today.
How
That
is
trust
it
is
his
crucial to
fault?
public health, and you, more than any person or event in my lifetime, have destroyed that trust for millions of Americans. You lied to hundreds of millions of people amid the worst public health crisis in a century. You failed to follow your own guidance. You forced people to watch their loved ones die alone over the phone. It's disgusting. You destroyed the federal government's credibility when it comes to public health. We have entire generations of Americans who, rightfully so, do not trust our institution to keep people safe because of you. This has destroyed decades of progress and lifetimes of work because you want to fuel your own ego and be the center of attention. What would you do differently knowing what you know today, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
All the evidence is right here, and you still can't bring yourself to tell the truth or apologize because you received an auto-pin pardon from a staffer in the Biden White House. If we have another pandemic tomorrow, millions could die because of what you did to make Americans lose trust in their government when it comes to medicine and healthcare. How many families have you apologized to who had to watch their loved ones die alone? You breached public trust, and now you're hiding behind a fraudulent pardon. Your legacy will not be as a man who has saved America from COVID, but as a man who destroyed the public trust in America's public health institutions in exchange for 5 minutes of fame. This is how history will remember you. I yield back.
Senator Kim.
Thank you, Dr. Fauci, for coming on out in front of this committee. I know it's not what you would want. It's not what you deserve. I just want to say and start by just saying thank you to you for your service to this nation. I didn't know much about you prior to the pandemic. I came to learn about you from however many Americans did, but I also had the opportunity to talk to you and engage with you as someone who is a member of the
Looks like he's
Select
having
Committee on
a
Coronavirus Crisis
half
in the House of
good
Representatives.
time.
When I learned about your background, 38 years as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, appointed by President Reagan, served under 7 presidents, 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats. I admire that greatly. I myself had a chance to serve in the executive branch, serving government under both a Republican president and a Democratic president. And I believe that we need more of that type of work, a place where we can understand our jobs not as coming from a place of partisanship and politics, but that of just public service. And right now, I feel the hyperpartisanship growing in this country in dangerous ways. I feel it much more present here on the Hill than I did back when I served as a nonpartisan career public servant at the State Department. And I worry about it. I worry about what kind of trajectory we're on as a country and what this causes when it comes next for public service and those willing to step up for our nation. And it's not just in the attacks, but we see it brought out with the cuts to funding, to the firing of federal workers, to the demonization of their motivations, people calling our public servants criminals, thinking that they are there solely to undermine others that are trying to engage. I look at it right now. You know, it's not just that the people are being attacked, our public servants being attacked, but that it's undermining the very nature of the work of governance. You know, these cuts to HHS funding, to NIH funding, to the grants, cuts to the researchers doing the critical work to find cures and medicines. These firing, these cuts, they're creating a chilling effect, honestly, a chilling effect for the next generation of people who might consider stepping up to serve our nation, to be the next generation of researchers who now are wondering whether or not this is the right thing for them to do at a time when they see some of their colleagues or those that they looked up to being attacked, their funding being cut. Researchers that I talk to who are now either leaving the country or considering leaving the country to do their work because of the sheer unpredictability of America. That this nation so great, so powerful, has now been crippled with this sense of unpredictability and unreliability. That is not the type of country that I hope we strive to be. I raise this because these attacks upon Dr. Fauci, it's not just about him. It's sending signals to others who are thinking about serving our country, our scientists, our doctors, our healthcare professionals, our researchers, trying to show to them that if you don't get in line with the politics, that you will also potentially be subject to attacks.
That's actually a good point. If everything's like, let's just say the healthcare field is highly politicized. Yes. What if you were like the only, I don't know, like, what if you're like a high established figure and just decides, you know what, and people really need you, and people really need you, and you have tons of experience, and nobody could do it like you do, at least in the known public. Wouldn't you just go, okay, well, this person is going to do everything he can to harm me. I'll just wait for somebody who wants for me to be in office. It feels like no matter what, people are always just going to hate you. Unless you just give up everything. I don't know, it's like when, If I were someone like Fauci, and I had a bunch of people, like, I did my job for 50 years, and I might have messed up once or twice, I feel like I'd probably just go and like, okay, I messed up. Maybe I'm not capable of this anymore. I'm not sure. It's like so many people trust you to not mess up, and now people don't even know what messing up even means anymore. I don't know. I'm just saying a bunch of shit, but this is all so confusing to me.
To show to them that if you don't get in line with the politics, that you will also potentially be subject to attacks. And from the work that he has done, from HIV/AIDS to Ebola to COVID, we've seen him try to engage in these crises. They're not easy, especially when it's a novel disease, when you don't know what comes next, a lot of unknowns, having to make decisions without the full breadth of knowledge we always wish we had in hindsight. But there is nothing perfect, no perfect clarity when it comes to pandemics, when it comes to crises. I worked in national security and wars and crises. I made judgment calls, gave my best advice to generals, to ambassadors, even to a president. Did I get it all right? No. Did I do my best? I did everything I thought I could.
Yeah, I like this
That I
guy.
had. The public servants, they do this work because they love this country and that they strive to improve it. It's not an easy job, but it is because there's so much at stake in our country. But these public servants do it because they are in the arena. I just want to end by just reading a portion of this because I think it's important as we're thinking about how to be able to treat public servants through this country, to think through this. And in the words of Teddy Roosevelt saying, it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs but comes short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumphs of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
I like
Thank you for your
this
service,
guy.
Dr. Fauci. I yield back.
Yeah.
Senator Olling.
If you saw a clip of this and you heard the words, you should take that with you.
What day of the week is it?
It's just like on the other side, being a soldier.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
I-
On the advice of counsel, what day of the week is it today? On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing this.
Hey, I'm straight from the 40s, and I'm gonna tell you how it's gonna be, sonny. This is a law. This is a law, you see? This is a law. This is a law. Fucking Southerner, bruh. Like, dude, come on. Like, no one's gonna remember you after this. And I don't think anyone's gonna vote for that voice.
You don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic you got rich.
And it's all some terrible things.
While people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
You remember Greg Folkers? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Your chief of staff is the answer. Do you remember Patricia Conrad? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer.
Patricia! Not Patricia! Oh my god! He was cheating with Patricia in his dreams. I'm not I just thought of this. But imagine like your girlfriend comes up to you and is like, are you cheating on me? He's like, I don't keep knowing, but as advisory by the council, I respectfully plead the fifth. It's like, what? As advisory from the council, I respectfully plead the fifth. And she'd be like, I'm gonna plead you something else. She slaps me and she'll be like, I'll see you at 5.
Based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
She was your personal assistant. And what were these individuals doing in the depth of the pandemic in November of 2020 when millions
There's
of Americans
gotta
were
be a
suffering from COVID? What were they
question.
doing? I tell you what they're doing. Folkers was on your behalf soliciting and gathering information for a cash award. Let's look at it. We've got his email right here, right over my shoulder.
Bruh.
Volker says, I'm working on this nomination for the Dan David Award for Fauci. We need to beef up the COVID part. Do you have language in the can that you can share that delineates how we responded
What?
in new ways?
I am working on blank this nomination for this Dan Devon Award for Fauci. Need to beef up the COVID part. Do you have the language in the can? Do you have language in the can so that you can share that delineates how you respond?
COVID. He sent this to multiple federal employees. What was the Dan David Award? Do you remember, Doc?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It was a $900,000 cash award. $900,000 cash award. And he got it because he used federal employees to get it. And this wasn't the only award, was it, Dr. Fauci? In fact, you applied for and received at least 8 other federal cash prizes on federal time using federal...
Maybe I should be a politician, because this is kind of how I used to do things. Like, I used to come up with all these crazy things and make all these crazy matters. And then you kind of just realize... it doesn't matter. Who cares that someone got $900,000? I don't know. Like, maybe I'm learning something here. Maybe that I just shouldn't... I mean, I guess people... Man, I guess they really do vote... People who care vote for people who care. But I guess people who vote for people who really care a little too much... I guess what I'm going to assume is that these people that are asking these crazy bozo questions, they just... I know that they think they're in the right, but they just sound so conspiratorial and crazy. So this is what you get. The internet, and maybe you used to get smarter people into office, but now it just seems like the internet has made more people elect these crazy people.
Employees and federal resources. Here they are over my shoulder. Besides the Dan David Award, you've got the Partnership for Public Service, you've got the Adelson Prize, you've got the Smithsonian Award, you've got the National Academy of Medicine's Award, you've got the CDC Foundation. In fact, you turned your staff into a full-time application machine. You actually wrote to people and said, do you think maybe I qualify? And you got cash for all of this. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 employees, was it? In fact, you used 8 separate federal employees on federal time using federal resources to solicit cash awards. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights
If he's working with the government, why can't he use the government's money to fucking do things?
under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Here they are right over my shoulder. Here's all of them. The people that you use, federal employees, so that you could go and get cash money. And the most hilarious part is that you weren't content
Fauci's 8 federal employees apply for awards.
to even dragoon them into applying for all of these cash awards. You then had them go out to the ethics agencies and ethics watchdogs and demand that you be able to get the money. That's right. We've got it in your emails. Your staff and employees on federal time, using federal resources, being paid with federal dollars, are soliciting cash for you, and then they're turning around and saying to the agency, we don't want just an answer, we want to get to yes, because Fauci wants the money. He wants it. We want to get to yes, and yes takes time. This is your chief of staff again, using federal email to pressure the agency's own ethics people so that you could get money, so that you could get rich. And it violated the law, didn't it, Dr. Fauci? Didn't it? It violated the law, didn't it? It is a question. You can answer. Go ahead.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Federal law, as you very well know, prohibits the solicitation of cash awards or other personal benefits for federal employees. And it certainly prohibits using your own employees to do this. 5 CFR section 2635-205B. It says it right there in black and white. You cannot...
Hey, he said that like the radio channel. That's kind of funny.
Use federal resources, federal dollars, federal employees, federal offices, federal email, federal time to solicit cash awards, and you did all of it. And the worst part is, thousands of people were dying while you were doing it. You were supposed to be the nation's doctor, and you're playing one on TV, but this is what you were doing with your time. Isn't that true?
Nope.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully
Or
decline to
yes.
answer based upon my
You
rights
don't
under the
know.
Fifth Amendment to the
It's the
Constitution.
Fifth Amendment.
Yeah, I can see why. I can certainly see why. You know what I can't quite figure out is why you were so obsessed with it, because you're already rich. I mean, your
He looks like Captain America.
I mean, your net worth now is north of $12 million. You got over $1 million in cash awards during COVID, during a 12-month, 24-month span during COVID. $1 million you knocked down in cash money using federal resources. Now you're worth more than $12 million. You got a pension that in its first year paid out north of $400,000 a year. 1 million people dead, you're getting rich. 1 million people dead, you're using federal employees to get cash awards for you. 1 million people dead, and you're here taking the fifth because you don't want to admit that what really happened in all that time was a multi-month, multi-year course of self-dealing. Isn't that true, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, well, silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the
You
day,
can't
it's just about the money.
do
It was
that.
about a power trip.
That's
And through all of this, you wanted to be the most famous
crazy.
scientist in the world. You were so
Oh,
focused
you
on
didn't
every
say
award and every
nothing?
drop of cash
Then
that you could.
well,
All
fuck
because
you
you wanted
then.
to be on TV. You wanted to be the son of
Silence
science.
and
You wanted to be the
admission.
guy who was in charge
He
of
made
it
his
all. You wanted
own
to bypass
goddamn
Trump. You wanted to
conclusions
make sure
without not
everybody else
knowing
focused
all
on
the
life.
complete
You wanted to be the
answers.
guy. You had time to sit for InStyle Mag.
Guys, silence is admission. I hate that. Silence is admission.
magazine.
Such a
Here's what you
weird
were doing your time.
thing.
You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle
Is he
magazine.
really gonna get an aura farming pose? Bro! Yo! It's just aura farming over Damn, dog. What the fuck, bro? Hey, that got clean, bro. That is a crazy aura farming technique, though. Wow. What do we call this one? We call this the fucking behind the poster farming? I don't know, like this has gotta be crazy. This is like the fucking, this is the got him technique. This is the got him technique. Oh my god. You have Fauci fucking aura farming. That is crazy.
That he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost
It was
your way.
always about Fauci,
You may have
guys.
been a good public servant at one time. I don't know.
The
But I can tell you
aura
that reading your
farming
emails now,
is
from looking at what you're doing to your
crazy.
employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became
did.
a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And
I
think
mean,
you'll
he
go home
kind of is the most famous scientist in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Fetterman.
Fucking aura farming, bruh.
Dr. Fauci, I'm not here to perhaps attack you or defend or anything. It's really just more, honestly, I just want to acknowledge I have had members of my family die from COVID, and now I also grieve for people that I've met.
Fetterman! Crazy. I forgot about
I
him.
have had members of my family die from COVID, and now I also grieve for people that I've met that have lost their business through the pandemic, and they'll never been the same. Now, during the pandemic, I was the lieutenant governor, so we were in the middle of all of that maelstrom, trying to find the right balance between protect life and protect the economics and for all of it. And I'm not sure if we got it all right or wrong, but without a doubt, I can continue to question myself. But one that it's not about much more your regrets, but I have one, and that is early on that there was the theory that the virus could have emerged from the lab. And early on, that became like a right-wing kinds of theory. And I thought it seemed to make sense. Now, there was a really advanced lab that was close by, and then you have this unknown virus out. So, but that became a very partisan thing. And now it seems now it's more and more emerging theory that would have come from the lab. Now, I think that the next time our nation's facing something like this, we are not become, as I might have been, blinded by the partisan idea that maybe the truth might come from a side that's different than you are. But I think we should really be willing to pursue truth, no matter where that may have emerged, after for all of that. So, and I now cede the remain back to the chair. Thank you.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What did he even say? This guy sounds like how I would have sounded like.
So, but that became a very partisan thing. And now it seems now it's more and more emerging theory that would have come from the lab. Now, I think right-wing kinds of theory. And I thought it seemed to make sense. Now, there was a really advanced lab that was close by, and then you have this unknown virus out. So, but that became a very partisan thing. And now it seems now it's more and more emerging theory that would have come from the lab. Now, I think that the next time our nation's facing something like this, we are not become, as I might have been, blinded by the partisan idea that maybe the truth might come from a side that's different than you are. But I think we should really be willing to pursue truth, no matter where that may have emerged.
I feel like that's one thing about centrists like me. It's hard to be coherent.
After for all of
Mr. Fauci, do you know who David Schertler is?
the remain back to the chair. Thank you.
Senator
I don't
Moreno.
think he said
Thank you, Mr.
anything.
Chairman. And I'll echo Senator Johnson's comments about your opening statement, Mr. Chairman. I think it was dead on. Very, very well done. Mr. Fauci, do you know who David Schertler is?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. What does the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution say?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
No, I'm just asking you what it says.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
I'm going to give the Constitution to my aide. He'll bring it over to you so you can have it for future reference. I think it's something that every American should know what the Constitution says. Do you know who wrote the Fifth Amendment?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer
Dude,
based upon
the
my rights
guy
under the Fifth
before him
Amendment to
already
Constitution.
did the
You're
gotcha.
right that you don't know who wrote it or what it says. Is that correct?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Wow. All right, let me tell you who David Schertler is for the audience because he was ejected by the chairman. He's a high-profile criminal attorney. He's represented some really great people, like Senator Bob Menendez. Maybe that's somebody who my Democrat colleagues might remember took gold bars as bribes from the Egyptians. And there's an article here in the Washington Free Beacon that talks about why you would hire a guy like David Schertler. And the comment is, if you're in deep shit, that's who you call. Do you feel like you're in deep shit?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the...
One sec. I don't know if he's in deep shit. Damn, it's gonna be just fine. I'm just like Fauci, I'm drinking water. We should all be a little more like Fauci and drink some fucking water.
You think today is that somehow you're above
the Constitution.
Clearly, what you think today is that somehow you're above reproach. Somehow you feel like you don't need to be treated like a normal American. Can you do me a favor in the audience and stand up if during the time of the COVID pandemic, you were called a racist for calling the virus a Wuhan virus or the China virus? If you thought the 6-foot rule was total crap, if you thought the vaccine wasn't something that you should take, if you thought it was outrageous the way the mask policy was rolled out, if you were fired from your job for not taking that vaccine, including members of the military, if you thought closing schools was catastrophically stupid, and that you thought that during these times saying these things made you somehow a lesser human being. Dr. Fauci, can you just turn around and look at the people behind you? You're not willing to do that? That's not a question. It's not a question. To your lawyers, not a question. It's a request.
Don't do it.
All you have to do is look up from your lawyers and look at the people who were absolutely shamed for saying what we know now to be the truth. You can't even look at them? That's a question. Are you able to look at them? You can sit down in the audience. There was a mom in Ohio during the depth of the coronavirus pandemic, decided to go to her high school football game for her son. They hadn't been out much. The kids had been learning at school, and then the school got shut down. They hadn't really gotten much out of that education. As any parent knew, that remote learning was no learning at all. But it was a Friday night. Her son wanted to go watch a buddy go play football. So they went to the stadium. They sat alone, far from everybody else, just a mom, a dad, a few kids. They didn't feel they needed to wear masks because it was stupid, because they're outside. They all live together. They're not near anybody. Dr. Fauci, do you know what happened to that mom and that family? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
They were dragged out of that stadium and arrested. Those policies were put in place because you had moronic politicians that listened to the words of a megalomaniac who was more interested in having met a Kardashian than the suffering of the American people, and that is you. Your advice to communities like that, to idiotic politicians who enforce those rules, arrested that mom for watching a football game with her own family outside. When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the fuck do you think you were for doing that?
Damn.
It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission.
Tattle on their neighbors do in large.
I mean,
rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
They were dragged out of that stadium. Will you
wait, if it was just them that were dragged out of the stadium,
apologize? Just apologize. Because arrested that mom, a few kids. They didn't feel they needed to wear masks because it was stupid. Because they're out.
Because they didn't wear masks, they got arrested.
Outside, they all live with dignity. To just say you were sorry.
That's what I was saying. Like, the government was kind of a little too much at the time. Like, that was kind of a little too much. But did you think Fauci was the one that did all this? I don't know. Maybe the cops... Maybe the cops could have, like... I don't know, man. I don't think Fauci was the one to... Because, like, this guy's whole story in his head is like, oh no, it's Dr. Evil Fauci over here! Oh no! It's all his fault. These guys got arrested.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So you won't apologize to the military members who Joe Biden summarily dismissed from the military for not taking the vaccine?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the business owners that lost their business, shattered their lives, and they'll never recover?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the moms who had to force their infant children, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, to put masks on, and what that did and how that traumatized those kids?
Under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the family members of the people who died because they took your advice and not only got the first vaccine, but the
God, man. Who cares?
5, 6 other boosters that they did not need?
He just sounds like an angry YouTube commenter.
To answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to that mom from Ohio for being arrested for watching a football game with her family? So you didn't know who wrote the Fifth Amendment. It's James Madison. Lived in this town. I can only wonder what he would think of somebody like you invoking his writings to shield culpability for the actions that you took. It's no secret why you have to hire the biggest dirtbag attorney on the planet, because of what you did. I hope you're paying him well. And I hope that one way or the other, somewhere, sometime, you answer for your crimes.
Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing today.
He'll answer
Dr.
them in
Fauci,
hell,
Americans haven't
in
forgotten
hell.
The tragic stories of people who lost loved ones during COVID and those that were denied a chance to say goodbye to their family members that were in hospitals or residing in nursing homes because of the COVID-19 protocols. Americans haven't forgotten the mandates, the adverse reactions to vaccines, the government misinformation, social media censorship, hotlines to tattle on their neighbors, the forced school closures, the tragic rise in suicides, or those businesses that were forced to close during lockdowns. Americans haven't forgotten the hundreds of billions of dollars spent by taxpayers for COVID relief, stolen by fraudsters who bought Rolls Royces and yachts. These were taxpayer dollars. Americans have lost trust in science and government after the COVID response, trust which will be incredibly difficult for us to gain back. Dr. Fauci, you said that the science was evolving and that your recommendations evolved with it. But Americans remember you as the public face of the coronavirus response. As one of the nation's most trusted voices, you urged policies you said were absolutely necessary, even when those policies came at an enormous human and economic cost. And Americans deserve answers about reports that you may have worked with others.
Fauci didn't do this on his own. It was like a collection of people. It's just basically, all this whole thing is just shooting the messenger. I think Fauci was just the messenger.
To pressure the president into adopting the slow the spread strategy, and why you later sought an unconditional pardon for crimes you may have committed dating back to 2014. Dr. Fauci, in 2022,
I want to know why
taxpayer-funded salary of
2014.
$480,000 a year. You were, in fact, the highest paid federal employee in the entire federal government, even making more than the NIH director and the president of the United States. According to now public documents, that was due in large part to your work on biodefense. Unreported is how NIAID spent over $1 billion from 2009 to 2026 in biodefense and influenza federal contracts and subcontracts. My office uncovered records on usaspending.gov that show from 2015 to 2020, NIAID paid out $515,418 in subcontracts to Harbin Veterinary Institute in Harbin, China, including $100,000 a few days after it opened a BSL-4 biolab in 2018. That very same institute was criticized for doing gain-of-function bird flu research in 2013, and yet you were funding them for years after that, sending U.S. taxpayer dollars to China. These contracts, which we also trace to NIAID, show U.S. taxpayers funded gain-of-function researchers in the Netherlands and in Wisconsin, funding the same folks whose controversial work led President Obama to pause this exact type of dangerous pandemic research. Dr. Fauci, did you know that the NIH's billion-dollar Sears contract programs were funding gain-of-function researchers in China, the U.S., and in the Netherlands?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, Dr. Deborah Birx wrote in her book that you and President Obama's former CDC director were at a Saturday, March 14th, yes, 2020 meeting at her home 2 days before the president announced his 15 days to slow the spread effort. Your now released diary said the meeting was a week before that. Dr. Birx said you all were trying to trap the president into having no other options. She wrote, your plan was to, quote, block any of the president's escape routes. So, quote, he'd have no choice but to agree to our flatten the curve measures. Yes or no, Dr. Fauci, did you try to block or trap President Trump into the slow the spread, flatten the curve measures in March 2020?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights.
That's a little creepy if it was true, but shit. How are people supposed to do any fucking thing anymore? You can't breathe without that becoming a fucking conspiracy theory.
When the COVID-19 virus broke out in Wuhan, China, you, Dr. Fauci, knew pretty much right away that NIH had funded Chinese labs, including those doing coronavirus.
You know what I think? I think America and I think social media has definitely turned everything into a we will always look over your shoulder culture. I think that it's what it's turned to. We will always look over your shoulder culture. That's an interesting word to coin. Literally, no matter what, if you get into politics, apparently now you can't take any more risks. You can't have any more maneuvers because somehow you're going to slight someone in some way. So we're always going to make sure that we look over your shoulder and turn it into culture. Look over your shoulder culture. I don't like that because look over your shoulder culture just creates more vultures. Look over your shoulder culture, vultures. Look over your shoulder culture, vultures. Just, this is so sad. Did you try to go in a cul-de-sac, did you try to create a circle and then put a square into it and then get the diameter of the rate? It's like so bullshit.
Virus research. There's email traffic from early January 2020 where your staff was
Over
bragging
the
to you
shoulder
that NIH
culture
funded coronavirus research
vultures.
at the Wuhan lab through EcoHealth Alliance. Yet few Americans knew we funded the Wuhan lab because the funding went through a sub-award and was not reported to the public database like usaspending.gov as it should have been. Also, EcoHealth violated federal law by failing to report in its research papers how much taxpayer funding it spent on that research. At my request, the Government Accountability Office helped track down that $1.4 million of U.S. taxpayer money that was sent to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, both by you, Dr. Fauci, and through USAID. But first, it passed through EcoHealth Alliance, which I helped to get defunded through the NDAA. Dr. Fauci, did you intentionally use sub-award funding to obscure NIH funding of Chinese biolabs and coronavirus research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
NIAID awarded multi-million-dollar grants to a number of scientists shortly after they wrote publicly in the Proximal Origins paper that the COVID virus likely came from nature. Though documents Chairman Paul released last week show in private, those same scientists were much more open to the virus being from a lab. In 2023, Representative Jordan insinuated that you basically gave a $9 million bribe in the form of an NIH grant to NIH-funded virologists to say the virus likely was from nature. Dr. Fauci, yes or no, did you reward the Proximal Origin authors by giving them NIAID grants or contracts?
I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, we have learned that U.S. coronavirus researchers at UNC shipped, quote, humanized or transgenic mice to China by around 2017 for use in their dangerous coronavirus work. Under your NIAID coronavirus, researchers also used aborted baby body parts in mice research, and taxpayers paid for them to do that. NIH-funded coronavirus researcher Dr. Ralph Barrick and his colleagues at UNC put parts of livers, thymuses, and chunks of human fetal lung that they got...
You know what's crazy? I just remember JD Vance saying, yeah, we are the dorks, but we always live by principle. We're the dorks. The Republicans are the dorks. Like, oh my God, bruh. Just let this whole abortion thing go, bruh.
Aborted.
Y'all really want...
Almost 5-month-old human babies. They put those parts in their research mice. They disgustingly named them BLTL mice and wrote they had created a, quote, sandwich of aborted body parts in the mice. Get it, folks? BLT. A BLT sandwich. Your RML lab employees in Montana also ordered and used aborted baby body parts in their taxpayer-funded research. And emails show how they plan to use those mice for post-COVID work. NIH funded putting aborted
I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. It's already aborted.
babies' fingers and scalps off the heads of aborted babies and putting them into the backs of research mice. The scalps later grew fine baby hair in the mice. They even included those disgusting photos in their research paper that you funded. Not all of those were research on coronaviruses, but some were. Thankfully, the current NIH director has said no more of this. Dr. Fauci, yes or no? Do you think that human aborted parts should be put into mice for coronavirus research?
The advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment.
Look at his face, bro. Like, that is a funny face to be making right now. Just like, bitch, what? When did we get here?
To the Constitution.
Mr.
Over the shoulder cultural virtues.
Chairman, would you direct the witness to answer the questions that we have been asking?
And it's so crazy. You'd think that people would go, oh my God! What did you say? What did he do? Oh my God! But instead it's like, nobody fucking cares. Like,
He probably would if he was here, but I can direct it. But no, I think we understand his answer.
We do understand that. Americans are asking for accountability, Dr. Fauci, and your silence is very telling. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm the most junior member of the Senate here, showing from where I sit. I just got here last year. Many of you may remember I was the Attorney General in Florida who fought back against the lockdowns, the school closures, the church closures,
last year.
everything to embrace sanity and science. We fought back. We got ridiculed for it. And we didn't just call people names. We actually impaneled a grand jury of people of all walks of life, all political persuasions. So that's how I came here, fighting for a free state amongst states that had locked their own people down. We are now called the Free State of Florida. And I believe our responsibility here is to make sure that government remembers that people are our bosses, that we report to them, that we're accountable to them. Government shouldn't operate for itself. Government operates on behalf of and for the American people. And anytime we get close to reporting back to our bosses, one said, today's hearing does damage. It will deter others from public service. Another said, this hearing is designed to entrap you. Another said, one fell all over himself, flattering you, thanking you for your service multiple times, quoting man in the arena. Another said that we are demeaning first responders. And today is a sad play in a repeated playbook. Or we're going after one man. I mean, all of their time was used on why we should not be having the hearing to report back to our bosses and give the people accountability. So I would like to talk about that because I believe that the trust the American people place in our public health institutions and what happened to that trust during COVID is important. Because in a public health emergency, they are asked to make extraordinary sacrifices based on advice given to them by the government that is supposed to be working for them. And for that system to work, the public has to be able to trust the people giving them instructions. That trust depends on candor. Would you agree with that, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
And when the evidence is uncertain, officials need to say so. When recommendations are based on assumptions rather than hard data, they need to say so. And when they get something wrong, they need to own it. And when the trust is lost and the consequences extend far beyond any single pandemic, the next time public health officials genuinely need Americans to listen, millions of people may simply ignore them or not believe them. And Dr. Fauci, you were undeniably the face of the federal government's COVID response. You said so yourself in your diary. You said it's not hyperbole to say, I've become the most famous and talked about person in the country. So I want to understand.
I feel like when Trump got elected, like this is like Fauci was just like, oh, now I got to do one of these fucking shits.
How we got here. Let's start at the beginning. On March 8th, 2020, you appeared on 60 Minutes to discuss the spread of COVID-19. You were specifically asked to clear up the confusion and misinformation surrounding masks. You told the American people right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with a mask. The interviewer immediately stopped you and said, are you sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this. And instead of walking back or qualifying your statement in any way, you doubled down. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little better. It might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with their masks. They keep touching their face. Just a few weeks later, the CDC released its guidance recommending that Americans wear masks in public. You were asked to explain your original recommendation. You emphasized a very different consideration. You said, well, back then, the critical issue was to save the masks for the people who really needed them because it was felt there was a shortage of masks. So I want everybody to sit with that. The critical issue driving your initial recommendation to the American public was scarcity, logistics, not medical evidence. So when you told the American people there was no reason to wear a mask, what was your principal objective? Giving them an honest assessment of the medical evidence or discouraging them from consuming a scarce supply of masks?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Well, unfortunately, that was just
Man, I'm
a
as
broader
bored as
thought
he
pattern.
is.
Let's talk about the 6-foot distancing rule. In April 5th, 2020, interview on CBS said, every time I get to that podium in the White House briefing room, I always essentially plead with
Over
please
the
take a look at this very
culture
short guideline for
shoulder
physical separation, and they're very, very clear,
vultures.
physically separate 6 feet away. Yet when Congress finally asked
Over
you,
the shoulder culture
6-foot distance rule
vultures.
for COVID, you admitted you were not aware of any
Everything.
studies supporting it. Incredibly, you said the 6-foot rule sort of just appeared and described it as an empiric decision that wasn't based on data. And that rule had real consequences. Schools didn't open back up. Businesses didn't open.
Damn. Like, it's kind of funny. You just realize this is like the culmination of just all the bad effects of, you know, trauma dumping. Damn. I feel like I need to have my great political awakening here.
Back up. Churches didn't open back up. I could go on and on and on. And America.
You know what? If everybody got in fucking therapy, like everybody in the world, if everybody was just installed a free therapist, if I were like fucking president, I'd be like, everybody gets a free therapist. And if you have a free therapist, you cannot miss a week unless, you know, you get a doctor's note or something.
Americans were kept physically separated from one another during the most difficult moments of their lives. Many lost loved ones during that time.
When?
So, Dr. Fauci, did you have any
Okay, not for the lost loved ones, but for like the...
evidence to support a 6-foot separation rule when you gave that advice to Americans?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
All right, well, let's look at the lockdowns then. By 2022, the consequences of prolonged COVID lockdowns on our children were clear, from delayed development to social isolation, which is probably why you were asked in July 2022 whether you would recommend locking down schools again. And you said, first of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. But now we have your diary. And it tells a very different story from the one you told the public. And I will quote, I spoke with Bill de Blasio, the mayor of NYC, and convinced him based on what I was saying publicly in my conversation tonight to close the NYC schools. He had already decided based on what I was saying on TV. I went on to tell him he should close the bars and restaurants in NYC, and he said he would do this based on my recommendation. You even said that you told the president we should shut the whole country down. So Dr. Fauci, how do you square telling the American people publicly that you didn't recommend locking anything down with your own diary entry kept on federal government equipment saying that your recommendation is what convinced the mayor and the president to lock things down?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Now, I just want to make clear that when in Florida, we were pleading with people to give us advice based on scientific evidence, that we were getting these conflicting statements by you that didn't match scientific data. And in fact, when we impaneled a grand jury, the grand jury's conclusion, not surprising to anyone, and by the way, we're still the only state to have impaneled a grand jury. I was the only attorney general to do this. We did this in 2023. That conclusion was the lockdown, mask, and social distancing advice ministered by federal agencies and implemented by certain local, state, and federal agencies was not based on the best available scientific data. In fact, many recommendations and their accompanying mandates departed significantly from available research. Again, people from all walks of life, all political persuasions, that is what they found. And yet, during that time, while you were giving those statements, knowing there was no scientific basis for it, and we know now you knew it because we have your diary entries, you called the governor that I worked with to fight to keep Washington and D.C. out of our state so that we could indeed respect the rights of our citizens. You called our governor, Governor DeSantis, and I'm going to quote this so I get it right out of your journals, a total jerk, that he is a complete disgrace, that he is blocking local authorities from mandating masks in various locations, including schools. And you were very concerned and upset that we were actively, and I'm going to quote, criticizing you, and we talked virtually every day about being wrong on everything. And what is astounding is that you wrote you feared because of that, because we were questioning our government, because we were fighting back for the truth from our government, from scientifically based recommendations, because we were pushing for that. You said you feared that our democracy is in dire danger.
There are two types of right-wingers. They're the dorks, and then they're the funny ones. And I think the funny ones are funny. And I think the dorks are fucking lame. I like the funny right-wingers. I like the relatable ones. And I don't like the ones who are going to extreme. I guess there's three types. You get the extremists, you have the funny ones, and then you have the dorks. I like the funny ones, okay? I like a good joke. The more you listen to Republicans at this point in time, like compared to the Democrats, yeah, J.D. Vance was right. They are cooler. Like, these guys just sound like absolute fucking dorks.
Goodness, we have people up here.
Like,
that I work with
absolute
understand our role,
dorks.
which is to report to our bosses, the people, because they are in charge. Calling for our government to be honest with us and transparent with us and accountable to us. That is a democracy.
We gotta do it!
What you did is the opposite.
We gotta do the
I
opposite!
have to explain this to someone who represented our government and some of the most important issues for so long. And before I conclude, if I can just put up our pardon. This is the pardon you have heard so much about. And Dr. Fauci,
This is
the only
your
other person to have a
shield.
pardon like this, I believe.
His
had a
pardons
last name
are
of Biden.
farming too.
This pardon goes back to, and if you'll see, January the 1st of 2014. Did you talk to President Biden and ask for this pardon?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the
Yo,
Constitution.
what
Who
is
did you
up
talk to in
with...
the White House about this pardon?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you specifically ask that it be dated back to the beginning of 2014?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you do that so that you would be given immunity going back to the beginning of 2014?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
I'm just very interested in why it was this date. Did it have anything to do with the
dorky.
fact that 2014 was also the year that the NIAID or NIH began funding EcoHealth Alliance's Understanding the Risk of Bat Coronavirus Emergence Grant?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
And this is the same grant that funded the work on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute on Virology.
So dorky.
Millions of Americans are questioning what happened during COVID, why we were getting...
Okay, but like, now that I think of that, it's like, okay, when Dan Clancy gets fucking... I guess it's dorky because it has to do with the Medicare stuff. But like, once it starts becoming about like Twitch and shit and how extreme it's got on there, I feel like it'll be a little less dorky. I'm not too sure.
Given misleading information, misleading advice, why you gave conflicting statements based on, I guess, how you were feeling that day. And Americans, rightfully, we lost over 1 million Americans. They should be insulted when the Democrats insult our chair that he's doing this because he's on an obsessive mission to go after one man. Could his obsessive mission be to find out why 1 million Americans died and who might be responsible for that and where that started? Could that be his mission, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
And after everything we've just walked through, can you sit here today and tell the American people, our bosses, that you bear no responsibility for their collapse in trust of their government?
Based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Time has expired. We're going to do another quick round for those who remain, about 5 minutes. Any questions that haven't come up that are pressed?
Like, I'm assuming, yeah, like, it's better to have dorky people in charge, but man, they sound so dorky.
Let's try not to go over territory that's already been done. I'll begin.
Like, I'm not saying to have right-wingers in charge or anything, but it's good to have dorky people talking because they know what they're talking about. But this just feels like conspiratorial level of dorky, and I care too much dorky.
By asking unanimous consent to insert into the record documents that show that the CIA transferred funds to NIAID through interagency agreement. Hearing no objection, so ordered. We had hoped to hear testimony from Anthony Fauci today. We haven't, but I think it's important that we do hear from him. So we will have a video we'll play in a moment. For years, Anthony Fauci has been the public face of saying this in all likelihood came from nature. He kept saying, it's the marketplace, it's the marketplace, it's the marketplace. He's been saying that on television up until recently. But what we find is that what he was saying in public is different than what he was saying in private. In January, in private, he wrote that looks like the wet market was a super spreader event. It didn't originate there. We know that some of the earliest deaths and sickness came from somewhere else. But then for years and years, we got dishonesty. So let's play the video so we can see a little juxtaposition of the problem we're dealing with.
I didn't see that. Dr. Fauci knew from the very beginning that the pandemic... The pandemic from what market? Why are they going so fast?
Wild, they walk into wet markets. They got animals that come out of the wild that are sold at these open, but they call them
Yeah, he does look like another animal here. He does look like a rat.
wet markets. Wet markets. When you bring animals into the wild, you have these viruses. The wet markets in Asia, where people bring animals.
It's like, so why does he look so like weird? Why does he look like an airhead?
The forest into market. There are wet markets in Wuhan that are ample opportunity for a virus to jump from an animal. The origin was from a bat to an intermediate opposed to a human, very likely in a wet market, and those animals should not have been in the Wuhan market. They knew that those animals should not have been in the market, and they immediately cleaned out the market, put restrictions on the kinds of animals that come into these wet markets. I think I should shut down those things right away. I mean, it boggles my mind.
So repeatedly saying in public something different than what he believed in private. Now this is interesting because, the first SARS outbreak in 2003 was traced to a wet market to animals there. But interestingly, they had evidence that the animals had the disease. They also had evidence that the handlers had a disproportionately high number of antibodies to the disease. So there was evidence, and the evidence was presented. So when this came out, the same thing happened again. They did look at the wet market. They looked at the wet market and tested, I think, 80,000 animals and didn't find any animals that had COVID-19. When they did find COVID-19 and trace samples there, they found that the DNA or the RNA was consistent with human spread. This was known not later on, didn't take years to develop, was known in January of 2020. And so Dr. Fauci says privately he knows it didn't come from the wet market. But as you saw, those were over a multi-year period. One of the other discussions I've had with Dr. Fauci over the years about natural immunity. So most infections, you get a degree of immunity. Not perfect, some fairly perfect. Smallpox, you just don't get again. George Washington knew this. He had his wife get vaccinated, but he didn't because he'd already had smallpox. But there's one particular story that a man came up to me and lost his wife to COVID. He said, we all got it. We all got sick, and my wife ended up getting sick enough to go to the hospital. But we'd recovered 2 weeks. She was still alive. 2 to 3 weeks later, we'd all recovered, and they wouldn't let us be with her. And to this day, it's one of the saddest things. And it just, I think all of us should think about this. They were not allowed to visit their mom. He wasn't allowed to visit his wife in the hospital. But based on this misunderstanding of natural immunity, that for some reason, 2 weeks later, they were a problem. But this was all promulgated by you. We had the workers in the the meat factories. They were essential. They had to keep working. Most of them got COVID. They got it in the first couple of weeks. Most of them were younger. The reassurance should have come from public health. The reassurance should have said, congratulations, you've recovered. It also should be acknowledged. What's the number one thing we can do if we get another pandemic? Before we have a vaccine, before we have monoclonal antibodies, it would be to utilize natural immunity. So instead of the advice...
Yeah, because I thought meat workers already wore
the deaths
masks.
of hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands of people, you could have been saying, well, maybe the nurses taking care of the elderly should be people who are 2 weeks out from COVID infection. We could have used natural immunity as somewhat of a block of protection. Imperfect, but the only protection we had and the only thing we could have done. Instead, the nursing homes were seated with people who had COVID. So I think the discussion of natural immunity is one where there wasn't sufficient honesty, humility, there wasn't enough presentation to encourage people. That was the only encouraging thing we had for a while is you've got it. You're very, very, if not impossible, close to impossible chance that you'll die if you get it again. Everybody could have been reassured. Nobody's reassured. It's like, well, we don't know. We just don't quite understand natural immunity. My favorite quote from that is from Martin Kulldorff from Harvard. You called him one of the people you had to take down, the fringe epidemiologist, which I've never ever heard a scientist call another scientist that. But he jokingly said on Twitter, he said, yeah, we knew about natural immunity from 486 BC, from the time of the Athenian plague. We lost all knowledge of it in 2020. The good news is it's slowly coming back. 24 to 2025, we're beginning to understand what natural immunity is again. Not something perfect, but a useful tool that could have been used, but also something that could have helped people by telling the public, my goodness, you're not going to die now. You have a chance. If you've already had it and you're 85 years old and you're at risk for it, and you're wanting to feed your wife, and they're telling you to wear 4 masks and not be around your wife when you've already had it, it made no sense. I visited with a man whose mom was 83 and she was dying from COVID. They go to the hospital in Orange County. They won't admit her to the hospital till she's vaccinated because we have a policy that everybody in the hospital must be vaccinated. She's got COVID and they wanted to vaccinate her again. At one point in time, the CDC understood this. They told people, don't get vaccinated if you've had COVID within 3 months. Why? Because it may give you a heightened immune response when you've already got a heightened immune response. But giving a person very sick, and many of the people who died from COVID died from sort of this storm of response, this immune storm, the answer wouldn't be try to stir up their immune response more by giving them a vaccine. The answer was actually steroids. And good old-fashioned steroids, 37% reduction in death. It turned out to be way more valuable than remdesivir, way more valuable than any of the other treatments, but I don't remember ever hearing a complimentary word on natural immunity or steroids or anything else. And, I wish we could have done more today. I would have been willing to accept an apology today. I'm sorry I made mistakes. We all made mistakes. And, at the time, I thought the gain of function research was, the risks of it were worth the benefits. But I've reassessed since 15 million people died. People say, well, gosh, these things never happened. We know it happened in 1977. We know with 100% certainty a virus escaped. In 1977, there's something called the Russian flu. Nobody's exactly positive how it got out. But when they sequenced it, they found out that a flu in 1977 had exactly the same RNA as a 1954 one that they had in the lab and they created a vaccine for. In fact, turns out anybody born before 1954 was immune, and the only people got it were people who were born between 1954 and 1977. But it was identical. The genetic sequence was identical to this vaccine or the virus from 1954, and that doesn't happen because these respiratory viruses are always mutating. To be identical means it had to have leaked from the lab, proof positive that it had. So we know this happens. An author by the name of Young wrote a book and said there was 1,200 cases of significant accidents that have occurred. We knew all of this, and yet it was completely discounted because I think you were worried that if it was seen that you funded dangerous research to start the pandemic, you'd get blamed. And it was a concerted effort. It wasn't just you, anybody associated with the funding.
I'd love you to try that, Dr. Paul. I would love you to put yourself in Fauci's shoes, though.
Decided we needed to protect ourselves. Senator Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that we lost knowledge of natural immunity. I didn't. Dr. Fauci did. I suppose I had an asymptomatic case of COVID because of the very faulty PCR test. I never got vaccinated or injected. There's no way I would have done that because I found out enough about the mRNA gene therapy. But you also brought up the issue of hospital protocols. I'm going to be holding a public event on hospital protocols. We've already received a couple hundred testimonies. They are heart-wrenching. They are heart-wrenching. Here's an excerpt from the testimony of a staff surgeon, very experienced, doctor for decades, at Providence Regional Medical Center, Everett, Washington. Quote, after our hospital was given remdesivir by the CDC, we were provided misleading/inaccurate information about the drug by our medical leadership. When I had a young trauma patient who was a perfect candidate for remdesivir, the infectious disease doctor on call told me to not give it to her because, quote, she seemed like a nice girl.
Fauci needs one of
It
these.
was known early the remdesivir kills. I said nurses referred to it as run, death is near. So again, I've always been, it never made sense to me that we put all of our eggs in the experimental gene therapy. If you knew anything about it, you would have avoided it like a plague. And we sabotaged early treatment. But the only treatment we really approved, monoclonal antibodies, which I think basically worked pretty well, but those weren't particularly available. They were denied an awful lot of patients. It was all remdesivir. Based on a study that the NIH changed the endpoint from mortality, because it had no impact on mortality, to days recovery. A drug that the WHO recommended against its use in COVID in November 2020, but a drug that cost over $3,000 for a course of treatment, versus things like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, who even Dr. Fauci, and I should have got that one out because I want to take this time to end things on the record, said we need to have a very tight protocol on remdesivir because it's unknown, but hydroxychloroquine, that's approved, some side effects, but we have a long history of it. Let's put up my latest chart. Again, I was tracking adverse events on the experimental injection, but I use this chart as a comparison. So you've got ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. These are average, again, AVAs doesn't prove causation, but there's correlation. It's there for a safety signal. So ivermectin, over 30 years of FDA reports, 17 deaths per year. Hydroxychloroquine, over 38 years of reporting, 142 deaths per year. Remdesivir, over 5.5 years, 546 deaths per year. The COVID injection, almost 7,000 deaths per year. Which is safest? What did the FDA freak us out about ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, when they turned a complete blind eye toward the injection's injury? So I want to enter the quote from the surgeon. By the way, here's the answer. Cheryl Atkinson in an interview said that when it comes to money, we check financial ties among experts on the government panel devising coronavirus treatment guidelines, which had the effect of dialing back hydroxychloroquine use and giving an edge to remdesivir. We found the 11 members reporting links to a drug company, 9 of them named relationships to remdesivir's maker, Gilead. 7 more, including 2 of the committee leaders, have ties to Gilead beyond the 11 months they had to disclose. 2 were on Gilead's advisory board, others were paid consultants who received research support and honoraria. By the way, within the study, I think one of the study participants was an employee of Gilead. A bunch also had conflicts with Gilead. So, gee, I wonder why. Their conflicts of interest, Gilead made billions of dollars off of remdesivir and people died. In terms of ignoring safety signals, you can probably put that down now. This has come to light. This is Dr. Drew Weissman, who got the Nobel Prize for the mRNA platform. He wrote to Dr. Fauci on February 8th of 2020. Tony, I wanted to alert you to some new data we generated with our mRNA LNP vaccine. It was a higher fold dose, but that mRNA LNP go to the placenta and fetus, measured by translation of the mRNA and cause of immune response in the amniotic fluid. So that same day, Dr. Fauci responds, it'd be interesting to see what human dose levels given intramuscular do. So about a month later, Dr. Weissman replies, he said, we still have some concerns over the data after they tested it IM. Now, again, there's more documentation in terms of the FDA blew it off. It's like, don't worry about that. That was the whole thing. That's what Peter Marks did when he was showing that his algorithm was going to mask safety signals. The last thing I want to enter in the record here is, and I want to make the point, why is this important? That they buried the treatment of severely injection injured. The fact that we have acknowledged these injection injuries, these people can't get treatment. They're being gaslit by their doctors. So it's all in your head. The rate of the injection injured of suicides is increasing because they've given up hope, because our medical establishment, federal health agencies completely failed them, failing to acknowledge it. So again, Dr. Nath was diagnosing and treating injection injured in March of 2021. This concerned people. So you had Dr. Walter Koroshitz, writes Dr. Fauci. One of the points he made, there's been a steady, slow stream of reports to me of post-vaccination neurological conditions. Dr. Nath has been collecting a bunch. He has reports sent out to publish. Well, that alarmed everybody. Boy, you can't let the public know what's actually happening. You can't actually let the public know what the science is showing. So on April 29th, a email from Francis Collins, head of NIH, to Dr. Koroshitz, says, I find this approach troubling and will have the main consequence of feeding vaccine hesitancy and social media overreaction. Then Dr. Lawrence Tabak writes to Francis Collins, I don't understand why Walter does not shut this thing down. Why don't you shut down Dr. Nath, who's actually treating injection injured? Why? Because of vaccine hesitancy. And because we haven't acknowledged that, and the reason I've been advocating for this is because I know the injection injured. I know people who lost loved ones within days of the injection. And we've turned our backs on them. They deserve acknowledgement. They deserve to be heard, seen, and believed so they can get treatment. I also know the doctors whose careers were destroyed because you denigrated things like ivermectin and denied ivermectin to people in hospitals who got their kidneys knocked out by the remdesivir, but got put on ventilators, never got to hug their loved ones goodbye because of those hospital protocols. That's what your science did to people. So, Dr. Fauci, my only question is, based on your lack of testimony here today, based quite honestly on our investigation into
God, I got so bored.
safety
I was
signals
like,
and
what the
injection
fuck?
injuries, we have issued letters to a number of former FDA officials to come in for transcribed interviews. You'll be getting a letter today asking for a volunteer transcribed interview. So I'd be asking, will you comply or will I have to subpoena you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Expect a subpoena. Thank you.
Senator Scott.
Dr. Fauci, did you personally receive any royalty payments connected to COVID-related intellectual property?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Given that NIH receives royalty payments from certain pharmaceutical companies, why would any American believe these financial ties did not influence decisions about which treatments were promoted or restricted?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Why doesn't NIAID publicly disclose these payments?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you partner with Bill Gates on global health initiatives or vaccines?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
How much did Bill Gates entities provide funding to NIAID collectively since 2005?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you acknowledge that Bill Gates partnered with China on sensitive research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Specifically, dual-use research such as countermeasures or gain of function?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you know Bill Gates entities partnered with U.S. government classified programs?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you know Bill Gates maintains an active national security clearance?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you advocate or request for Bill Gates to receive a security clearance?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you have any knowledge that NIAID or NIH through HHS sponsored or requested a security clearance for Bill Gates?
I feel like
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Around 2010, my understanding is that the government shifted its approach to biodefense countermeasure research. Did NIAID, under your leadership, partner with the Obama White House or any other U.S. government classified entities on sensitive countermeasures research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did your office take steps to drive biological research investments?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What was private industry's take on the type of research in the 2010 timeframe and before?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Was it considered too dangerous to conduct, and industry was hesitant to take this on and invest in?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Why did you take steps to mature the government's approach to biodefense?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Were there any specific
Damn, he's
lines of
done
effort or actions
twirling
you
his
felt needed
thumbs
during this time to
now.
improve the research development and fielding model?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
How was dual use and gain of function incorporated or accounted for in maturing biodefense countermeasures?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you ever discuss moving gain of function countermeasures research out of government space to private industry space?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
How were these private organizations regulated through government oversight while conducting risky research, including gain of function or gene editing technology?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did the Obama White House or any government entities take steps to inject funding into private industry?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
How do you ensure that our national security and public health is protected when private organizations work with foreign countries of concern and have the no government oversight, such as the Eco Health Alliance research grant you funded in a CCP military lab?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Given the culture of the pay to play at NIAID, did you or anyone acting on your behalf make any payment or enter any arrangement in any way or fashion to secure influence the broad pardon you received from President Biden?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from the Department of Energy that confirms during Anthony Fauci's tenure that Bill Gates was given Q security clearance from 2014 to 2021. Without objection, that will be entered into the record. I'd also ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the contents of the folder of authorities provided to Dr. Fauci, including the pardon. Let's be clear today, what we've seen. I really did want to hear from Dr. Fauci. I wanted to hear perhaps an apology, perhaps some semblance of being sorry for what happened or that judgment errors were made. We didn't hear any of that. But he was subpoenaed here to testify, refused to answer any questions, even after being directed by the chair and being advised of the law requiring him to do so. He has cited a privilege that is unsupported because of his blanket pardon and because he waived the privilege by testifying at the start. I'm going to give you one more opportunity to comply with the law, limited to the period of your pardon. At any point between January 1st, 2014 and January 19th, 2025, did you destroy any federal record or tell anyone else to?
Under the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Given that you have a unlimited presidential pardon.
Give me a second. Of course he's not going to admit that. I'll give you one last chance. fucking use. Fuck y'all toothpicks.
What is your specific objection that you are making?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
My question was limited to the period of your pardon only. I find your objection unsupported and direct you to answer the question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Because you refuse to answer, citing a privilege that is unsupported because of your pardon, and after being denied to do so, this committee has scheduled a vote next week on a resolution certifying your contempt. I think we have another question or two from Senator Langford.
Mr. Chairman, really, this is a question for you, and it's a question to try to figure out how do we get a good answer on this, because clearly Dr. Fauci's attorneys are saying that he has a Fifth Amendment right. We've also subpoenaed him to be able to compel his testimony to be able to be here. I happen to be in the committee. We were also dealing with Lois Lerner. Lois Lerner came and testified, gave an opening statement, and then took the Fifth Amendment. The committee then held her in contempt for that, saying you can't do both. You can't both testify and say I'm not going to answer questions. So the parliamentary question that I think we've got to be able to deal with is this consistent with Lois Lerner? What she also did when she came before Congress, gave an opening statement, testimony, so made a statement, and then refused to answer questions. Are we dealing with the same issue here, where someone is making, you can't make a statement and say I'm not going to make statements at the same time?
I think it's a very good question. I think that's something all of us will examine over next week. We're going to have a vote next week on contempt. I think there's another legal question that the courts may have to decide upon, and that is whether or not a presidential pardon that offers you complete immunity, that you can still claim that you need protection from immunity when you've been protected. Because Dr. Fauci isn't liable for anything as long as he tells the truth. Even if he admits that he destroyed records on a routine basis. His assistant said she destroyed a ton of emails. I think it was a routine thing. I think he destroyed throughout his career, there are probably thousands of emails. Even if he did that, as long as he answered truthfully, yes, I did. I didn't think that was important. I made a mistake. You can't be prosecuted for it. Many of the things are outside the statute of limitations as well. All he had to do today, if he wanted to testify, was be honest. As long as he was honest, even about committing a crime, he would have no jeopardy. But I think the pardon has given him more immunity than most people would ever get. Like if you offer a witness immunity in exchange for testimony, he has blanket immunity. The president gave him blanket immunity for virtually anything he could have possibly done, while at NIH. So I think we all have to individually answer this question. We welcome you to be part of helping us figure out the question, but there will be a vote, at least right now, we plan to be a vote next week on contempt.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Today will be the capstone to Anthony Fauci's 4 years of abuse of power at NIH. In the end, must imagine Fauci believes he got away with it. But still, late at night, even the guilty must become anxious, rerunning the scenarios through his mind, wondering, latching on to lingering doubts, and worrying. Did his actions lead to the largest man-made plague in human history? Are the millions dead the result of his experiments or experiments that he approved that increase the pathogenicity of deadly viruses? History will judge, but the facts, as we now know them, paint a sordid tale of dishonesty, misjudgment, and ultimately the hubris, the likes of which the world has rarely seen. If everyone will remain seated for a few minutes, we're going to let Dr. Fauci exit. Thank you.
Damn. Quick, get the pictures! Make sure you get the pictures! Oh, God. I think my reaction to this is pretty clear. What did I think about this? I don't know. I mean, he could be right. He was pardoned. But I feel like him being pardoned was kind of also like, I feel like he was not in any winning situation, because if he wasn't pardoned, if he was pardoned and he says things, it's going to destroy his credibility. But if he doesn't say anything and it's pardoned, then, it's just going to put him more through the ringer and destroy his credibility down the line. It's weird that Fauci just has things to hide in the first place. If you're a servant in any government, what is there to hide? I don't get it. I don't get why we need to be hiding. If you did something wrong, and you got pardoned for it, I guess that is a good thing. Like, why hide it? I'm not too sure. But then, also, it also helps helps with, keeping other people's identities safe and the non-snitching and stuff like that. I don't know. Overall, I feel like this was kind of useless. I think this was all kind of performative. I don't think anything's going to happen. He's not going to get arrested. Now, if he does, that'd be pretty crazy. I don't think anything's going to come of this. I think it is just political. Maybe something that Rand Paul is going to write in one of his books. I think that's all Rand Paul really wanted. I think he just wanted I think he and his goons definitely wanted to just run a train on him, because he probably hasn't had sex in months. So yeah, just a bunch of dorks trying to, get their seat at the table. Really, really annoying. Didn't really have to happen. Gonna have to watch a video about, or make a video about this, of course. Apparently, he replied 110 times. I got the vaccine. I didn't get poisoned. I think I got a booster shot though too. Lock his ass up. Trump. Okay, my question is, why they deleted? Why they write regular? My question here is why is they deleted all this? Why the regular sheriff's office detectives can pull up deleted items out of a phone, computer, top up, blah blah blah. Federal government can't do. I'm a little bit scared. Well, cause yeah, they got their head of the government. They've got oh, there's way more shit.
Yes, I'm surprised because he doesn't have the Fifth Amendment right. He gave a full and unconditional pardon, which I don't know. He should not have been.
Hold on, okay, give me a second. I'll be right back. I didn't think there would be more after this, but shit.
His pardon is absolutely sweeping. The Supreme Court's case law on this is absolutely clear. It has been for over a century. When you've been pardoned, your privilege disappears. The privilege is a right against self-incrimination leading to prosecution. He has received a full pardon that covers years. It is more sweeping than 100.
Hello.
It's outrageous.
Just watching
He knows that he violated federal law.
politics. Just finished watching the fuck. How do I say this? The Anthony Fauci testimony. Oh yeah, this is already a fast pace. How are you, Alexa? Also, how the hell did you find me? That's crazy to think that somebody just finds you, like out of nowhere. I would love that to know, but that's probably a bit creepy too. Alright, let's see.
Democrats are saying, though, that the pardon covers what happened before the pardon was issued and not necessarily what he would say today.
Do they think he's engaged in ongoing criminal enterprise? I mean, he wouldn't answer what color his tie is. He's got no privilege for that. He has no privilege.
I mean, was this an effort to trap him?
Not by me.
Yes.
It's an effort to get
It was an effort.
Listen,
There was an effort to trap him.
if he's selling cocaine or something right now, then sure, he can be prosecuted for that. Should be. But
What if he did have cocaine though?
his pardon is sweeping and blanket. He just doesn't want to answer.
What if like he walks away and he Yeah, damn, I was saving that shit. Honestly, I would want some cocaine after all that shit.
Questions. Because the truth is that he doesn't have answers. He doesn't have answers for anything I asked him about. He knows that what he did is wrong. He's gotten a pardon for that. So sadly, he can't be prosecuted. He can't be charged. He can't even be ethically reprimanded.
So there's nothing further the committee could do because the chair seemed to assert maybe further action should be taken.
I'm sorry. You mean based on the fact that he pleaded the fifth? No, I think potentially, given that he does not have a legal privilege. I mean, this is blatantly obstruction of a committee investigation. So I think there probably are options that we have.
What would those options be?
Here's what I think is absolutely the vital thing. The American people deserve to have answers. This is a forum in which you're under. Listen, I'm a lawyer. There's nothing like getting somebody under oath and getting the truth. This is why we have a jury system. This is why we have a legal system. It's why we have you. And what he
God, he sounds like a bad guy. He sounds like a villain from a movie. Oh, everybody just gotta fit this role. Even me. Even you. Dun dun dun! Fucking crazy.
he's doing now is coming in front of you and all of the American people. He's under oath, and he doesn't want to answer the questions because when he's not under oath, he can say whatever he wants, and there's no follow-up. But here he knows there's going to be follow-up, and he's got his allies, and he's got a whole bevy of lawyers behind him. He's got Democrats who are defending him. He doesn't want to answer any questions when he's on the hot seat and accountable. Just like people who don't want to talk to. Why don't people want to talk to you when the pressure's on? Well, because they don't want to get asked the tough questions. That's what he's doing in there. That's what this is about, and it's wrong.
On the Blanche hearing, on the
I'm sorry.
Was it the right choice not to let his lawyer speak?
Listen, his lawyer is not called as a witness. He's here saying that he won't testify. Fauci is saying, I'm not going to testify, but I want my lawyer to testify.
Fauci!
About a coward. I mean, come on. It's one or the other. I reiterate again, he has no Fifth Amendment right. He has been pardoned.
I'm the Fifth Amendment right. This is so crazy.
He doesn't want to answer any questions. And I think the worst of
Who the fuck cares?
A million people died. He got over $1 million in cash.
Bro, he probably got way more than $1 million, but who cares, man? He was just at the right place at the right goddamn time. And I just think he's jealous. I think he's jealous. You know what? I think he's just jealous that he got that much money. And this is why he's doing it.
Cash prizes. Cash prizes, people, that he solicited on federal time using at least eight different federal employees. He would write to the ethics agency and say, I want to make sure I can get the money, pressuring them to allow him to take the money. What is wrong with this guy?
Because probably they did something that was in service to the one craziest fucking thing in the whole goddamn country at the time!
That's what he doesn't want to talk about.
quickly on
Boo! Fucking brain dead, bro.
I'm not arguing. That's what it
Dude,
says.
the part where...
I wish you weren't, but that's what it says.
But then he's pleading the fifth because clearly he fears that he could be punished. So I'm trying
There you go! Talking some fucking sense.
Oh, I think he's pleading the fifth because he thinks he can get by with it, and he doesn't want to answer.
Bro! You can't put yourself in his shoes, man. This is like winning the worst lottery. The worst lottery ever. Like, you win the ticket, but now you have these over-the-shoulder culture vulture. Over-the-shoulder culture vultures for the rest of your lives. Like, you win the lottery, you put in your tickets, like, hey, look, you get this money, but for the rest of your life, you're going to have these so-called over-the-shoulder culture vultures always on your ass. And then you're just like, you know, I could take a couple haters. You can take a couple haters. I stream pretty consistently. Probably gonna be doing about like 3 hours a day. Just because I have a job and shit. I don't know when my schedule is, but thanks for asking. What was I gonna say? Anyways, you're gonna have your fucking you get this lottery ticket. Here, take this fucking lottery ticket, okay? I won. You know, fucking yeah. You're gonna have your over-the-shoulder cultural vultures come after you for the rest of your fucking life. And you go, I wouldn't mind a couple of haters. And then, and he'd be like, these aren't just haters, bro. They are literally demons. They are demons. And then you're just like, okay, I mean, There are demons everywhere too, but this guy's a fucking demon.
Answer the questions because he's under oath. But if he's
This guy, he's LARPing he's LARPing as a movie villain.
under oath and he's
I feel like Hollywood and fucking Washington DC are the same place, people. I think they're the same place. Cause literally, you have to be a good actor to do good in both. And this guy, from what I am seeing, is a fucking great actor. He is a great actor.
blanket pardon, why would he fear any form of prosecution?
Well, precisely. He doesn't reasonably fear any prosecution. He doesn't, because he has a blanket pardon. He just doesn't.
I love the gold water fountain. The fuck? Why don't we get gold water fountains in our buildings?
Because it's tough to take an oath.
How much did that gold water fountain cost? Can you tell me?
But at the same time, he argued he has answered questions to various House and Senate committees. I think he said some 200 times over the course of his tenure.
Yeah, why don't you go watch those, bro? Look at his face. That is not the question he wants to hear right now. He's just like, oh, fuck, they're right. My oval head ass boy.
Is that not sufficient? I mean, what's the point of litigating this
Josh Howley.
6 years later?
Listen, now we have his personal records. Now we have his emails. Now we have his diaries. Now we know that he was using federal employees.
Imagine being in school and then you do something excellent, like you help the school through a fire or something. You get compensated for it, and then the next thing you know, like everyone's bringing up your detention records. Like, oh, I remember you I don't know, you brought a cat into school one time and, you know, or, okay, maybe somebody could have been allergic to cats or something like that, or, you know, you did some things like, you know, you started a food fight or whatever, and but you really did save lives. It's like, okay, whatever, I don't know.
To solicit money for himself. All of that's new information that, to his credit, the chairman has turned up. And the information doesn't come from speculation. It's his records.
His
He's got
records.
Fauci's own records and Fauci's staff employees, on federal email, I might add, out there doing this for him in blatant violation of the law. He doesn't want to talk about any of that. Can he be prosecuted for any of that? No, because he's got a blanket pardon. But should he be held accountable in front of the American people? You bet, because he's a public servant. And by the way, he's the highest paid public servant ever in American history. He's got a pension
Well, this guy's so delusional.
that pays out $500,000.
I'm sorry, you're jelly. God, can this guy hear himself? He already knew he lost. This whole thing is pointless. He already knew he lost.
A year.
Give it up. Wrap it up.
Tax money. He's higher paid than the president. He's worth almost $13 million.
No, he makes more money than Daddy Trumpy. Not Daddy Trumpy Coon.
And he doesn't want to answer questions because it's inconvenient to him? Give me a break. What a guy.
On the Blanche markup tomorrow. How do you expect this
Ooh, she's got one of those jackass smiles.
Blanche markup tomorrow? How do you expect this markup tomorrow? How do you expect this to go in committee? It sounds like
Fucking
two
crazy.
of your Republican colleagues are still very much on the fence, and the acting attorney general is up here today. What do you expect tomorrow?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. We'll see.
I don't know either.
It's not long now.
Do you think that the acting attorney general should kind of do away with this whole anti-weaponization fund to curb those concerns from Senator Cornyn and Senator Tillis?
Listen, I will leave to Senator Cornyn. I know that Senator Cornyn wants something specific outcome. He wants a legal document, I think. So I'll let him speak for himself on that. Yes,
What do
guys.
you think Chairman Paul should do? You said Dr. Fauci doesn't have the right to speak for that.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to have to review the rules and the law and see if there's potential action that can be taken for obstruction of Congress. I mean, you can't come in. This is a valid subpoena. Listen, remember, he's not here willingly. He's been subpoenaed. So he's here under a valid subpoena, which he is obstructing by invoking a privilege he doesn't have, which he knows. I mean, listen, in any event, even if he hadn't been pardoned, there's no Fifth Amendment privilege just to deny answering what day of the week it is, what color the carpet is. I mean, that just shows you it's a bad faith effort on his part. And he knows it because he
No, he's
doesn't
just trying to keep it
want
consistent.
accountable, period, end of story. Anything else I can tell you guys?
Senator,
Yeah.
what needs to happen before we can move on from Fauci?
We need to get the truth. We need to get the truth. And we need to get, listen, I'm a huge believer in sunshine and truth and getting all of it out there, transparency. And nothing screams dishonesty than taking the Fifth Amendment when you're not even entitled to it. We need to get the truth so that we can make sure this never happens again. And tomorrow I will introduce legislation to bar all federal employees from soliciting cash prizes or taking cash prizes while they are in office. The idea that this man would get rich, his own secretary wrote him after he got the $900,000 award.
I wonder if he's doing like
Congratulations, you're
bullshit
rich.
too.
Of course, she had to help him apply for it. She had to go out and solicit it. We should make that absolutely illegal. I believe it already is. Soliciting it already is under federal law. We should do a blanket ban that no federal bureaucrat can accept.
All right, I want to see how like the mainstream media is like taking this. So let's see, Anthony Fauci, if I just look it up by himself. By the way, I see you're not affiliated. What does that mean? Affiliated with who? Oh, Twitch affiliated? I thought I was. Oops. Affiliated. Ah, shit. What does affiliated on Twitch mean again? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I only have 8 followers. Yeah, I only have 8 followers, but I can't get affiliated. Nothing I can do. Nobody knows me.
You are being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom? No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises. So I would say, sir, sit quietly and don't say another word. I said sit quietly. You are not recognized. Another word and you're gone.
Another word
So,
is
Mr. Chairman,
gone.
I'd like to hear what the attorney has to say.
He is not recognized by the committee or the chair.
He looks like a Muppet.
Members of the committee, I serve.
I don't know what the fuck happened. Like, I think I need to do more before I do the video. And everyone's gonna like fucking Fauci. I want to know what I just learned. Anthony Fauci pleads the USA Today. Okay. Ugh. Leave me alone. I don't want to subscribe. Dr. Anthony Fauci may be held in contempt of Congress after refusing to answer Republicans. Senator Rand Paul, Kentucky Republican. He really did sound like a McCarthy person. Senator Rand Paul, the Kentucky Republican who for years pushed for answers about the origins of coronavirus, said that the Senate panel will hold a vote on whether to hold Fauci in contempt. He said Fauci should have testified because former President Joe Biden issued him a preemptive pardon. Fauci appeared under subpoena in a hearing to test that Paul had one of Fauci's attorneys ejected from the room. After reading a statement saying the purpose of the hearing was to entrap him, Fauci repeatedly invoked the Fifth Amendment and declined to otherwise respond to the barrage. Democrats defended as a Doctor Who served the public. Sorry, got distracted. For nearly 40 years, the nation's top virologist. I can't say that. It must be completely frustrating to know that this hearing is a trap. I just want to know all the conspiracies. Am I not reading? Am I just saying words? I feel like I'm saying words. For years, hearing encapsulated more than 6 years. It's just a bunch of bullshit. Oh, Trump already commented on it? That's crazy. Oh, and that's big coming from him. Didn't Trump plead the Fifth like a bunch of times? I want to know what Trump said. I thought Trump put fucking... Oh. And everything's freezing. No! Hey, come on. I was just trying to read an article here. Hey, I want to hear what Trump said. Not this fucking ad. Okay, maybe the ad is already corrupting my computer.
Of everything else, you're trying to lose weight.
Hey.
Foundeo is a daily GLP-1 pill proven to help adults lose weight and keep it off. Foundeo helps people lose up to 25 pounds It's the only GLP-1 pill
Oh,
that
you're
can be taken
watching an
any time of
ad.
day with no planning.
Why do you think Dr. Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment so many times today when he has the pardon? And what was stopping him from just giving an honest testimony this morning?
Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Well, look, I've never been a big fan of Fauci. Why he
I've
did
never been a
that
big
was
fan
very
either.
simple. His lawyer told him to. You know, I don't know if he would have been better off not doing it. There were a lot of questions that I guess he could have answered, and some maybe he didn't feel comfortable in answering, but his lawyer told him to do that.
My lawyer told me to do that too.
Right in the middle of everything else.
So basically, he
you're
just
trying
said his
to
lawyer
lose
didn't
weight.
tell him to do that. His lawyer told him to do that. I mean, duh. He watched the entire sitting hear it. That's fine. Himself from the original face of his mystery. He wasn't a big factor to me. He could have been a big he was a really big factor for Biden. COVID was a disaster, but Fauci didn't help. That's a reporter asked Trump why he believes Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment. Well, look, I've never been a big fan of Fauci. Trump said, why he did that? Very simple. His lawyer told him to. I don't know if he would have been better not doing it. There was just a lot of questions. I mean, duh. Trump's been told by lawyers like this all the fucking time. Yu-Gi-Oh cards. The fuck? I mean, I like Yu-Gi-Oh, but not as much as I used to. House seeks to question Fauci too. Oh, the Democrats want him. Is trapped in many lies that he repeatedly told the American people. I mean, every politician would be. I feel like every politician is trapped in some sort of lies. You can't really, like, do anything about that. I don't know. I don't know. What a fucking crazy. I still got like 37 minutes left. I kind of want to see the clips that I got for the video. I'm gonna be making a video because I have to. Because I haven't made a video in forever because I was trying to learn how to do a system. My god, there's a ton of clips. Oh my god, a bunch to shit through. I guess the only thing we could do is take it one at a time, if you know what I'm saying. Whoa. Let's see. There's a ton of clips. Can I, like, go through them too? We're gonna go like, oh, okay. I'm getting subpoenaed. Well, I'm just going to do what Dr. Fauci does and just say, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. I mean, this seems like it's just the new standard now. Or at least he's creating it.
It couldn't have come from the viruses that have been published. And nobody's really arguing that. I think from the very beginning, people acknowledged that the viruses that have been published.
Oh, no. You know what I just thought? Imagine when Hassan Dan Clancy finally goes up to the podium when he gets grilled, and instead of justifying or trying to justify everything that Hassan or any like of his orbiters have said, like literally he just keeps pleading the fifth. Now I didn't think about that up until now, but that should be a very scary thing. Should we be allowed to plead the fifth? Shit, I forgot. I gotta get notes. I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. I mean, this seems like it's just the new standard now. Or at least he's creating it.
It couldn't have come from the viruses that have been published.
Wait, is the second one like the first one? We're gonna go like, oh, okay. I'm getting I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. I mean, this seems like it's just the new... We're gonna go like, oh, okay. I'm getting subpoenaed. Well, I'm just going to do what Dr. Fauci does and just say, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. I mean, this seems like it's just the new standard now.
Made,
or at least he's creating it.
It couldn't have come from the viruses that have been published. And nobody's really arguing that. I think from the very beginning, people acknowledged that the viruses that have been published.
Oh no, you know what I just thought? Imagine when Hassan finally, or Dan Clancy, finally goes up to the podium when he gets grilled. And and instead of justifying, or trying to justify everything that Hassan or any, like, of his orbiters have said, like, literally he just keeps pleading the fifth. Now, I didn't think about that up until now, but that should be a very scary thing. Should we be allowed to plead the fifth? I'm not too sure. We're gonna go like, oh, okay, I'm getting... I was only doing this because that's how we got voted in. Like, I think he just believed all the stupid things that he was saying, and then when he got voted in, like, he started realizing that people, like, the people who voted for him were probably stupid, but they still want him to do this anyways, so we're gonna go like, oh, okay, I'm getting subpoenaed. Well, I'm just gonna do what Dr. Fauci does and just say, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. I mean, this seems like it's just the new standard now.
Made,
or at least he's creating it.
It couldn't have come from the viruses that have been published. And nobody's really arguing that. I think from the very beginning, people acknowledged that the viruses that have been published.
Oh no, you know what I just thought? I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. I mean, this seems like it's just the new standard now.
Made,
or at least, oh no, you know what I just thought? Imagine when Hassan finally... I just think that might be something that we should talk about. The new meta of sorts. I was only doing this because that's how we got voted in. Like, I think he just believed all the stupid things that he was saying, and then when he got voted in, like, he started realizing that people, like, the people who voted for him were probably stupid, but they still want him to do this anyways, so that's probably why he's really miserable. I could tell he's miserable. And look at Fauci. He literally just knows that he's getting through this just fine. Like, man. Look at this lady rolling her eyes and shit. But yeah, Fauci, he looks like he's gonna be fine. In fact, he only has to say one phrase, while this guy has to say a mountain of bullshit. So Fauci, I think he looks like he's pretty safe. He's pretty calm. This guy in the back just like, bruh. I don't know. He looks fine. Fauci was only doing this because that's how... in your, as far as, like, you know, the political sphere or whatever. Yeah, I know we, like, you know, did some bombing in Iran not too long ago. I think it was like today,
I'm
and
sorry.
they stopped, and now they're back.
I don't really
on.
have any money. I'm poor. Sorry. And helps streamers how to start earning worth in a week. Do you want? I don't got any money. Sorry. I'm just kind of winging it. So if it costs anything, sorry. I don't even fucking remember. But Andrew Tate was a something happened. I mean, I don't want to be rude. I just, if I have to pay for anything, Teach streamers how to start earning. And help streamers how to start earning worth a week do you want? I didn't know that there are people like that around. So, with that in mind, I feel like a lot of people think in their little noodles, like, oh, okay, Andrew Tate got arrested. Now we need to fire back with Fauci. Let's put all of our attention on this. Now, I know this was coming. This probably was coming for a long time. This was always supposed to happen. But I feel like in people's minds, I think if you want to add me on Discord once you get affiliated, you could make $50 to $20 a day easily from Twitch. Okay. How? I think because Andrew Tate had just gotten arrested, you can tell me gotta do that now. I feel like now would be, or it would be an interesting time to see somebody else that they don't like, politically adjacent down the aisle, also get arrested, if I might be right here. Sorry, I don't want to let anyone down right now. I just, like, I do want to make money on Twitch. I just in your, as far as like, you know, the political sphere or whatever. Yeah, I know we, like, you know, did some bombing in Iran not too long ago. I think it was like today, and then stopped, and now they're back on. I don't even fucking remember. But Andrew Tate was a something happened. I forgot about this. So with that in mind, I feel like a lot of people think in their little noodles, like, oh, 1326. Okay, Andrew Tate got arrested. Now we need to fire back with Fauci. Let's put all of our attention on this. Now, I know this was coming. Sorry, I knew about that one. That was a good take. Now I got 30 more minutes left. No. Literally feels... Wait, I know exactly. Hold on. I have an idea. Yeah, that's what I thought. Hey, yeah, you're a scammer. That's what I see. But none of it also proves you're a scam. But it's a common pattern used by people selling overpriced services, affiliate schemes, or fake growth programs. If you're curious, you could simply reply, can you explain exactly what your service is, how it works, and how much it costs? Boom. It's like, it literally feels like he thinks he's a god now. Like, look at all this power. I have all this power. Just, can you explain exactly what your service is, how it works, and how much it costs? That way I can know that you're not a scam. I am fucking Superman, and this is my court. This is my fucking court. Don't tell me shit. Like, he's really exerting, because power just means certainty. No matter what he does, he is certain that he's going to be okay. So if he sees any little bit of just slight that his certainty is going to go away, boy, he's going to put that power on your ass. It is going to be belt to ass with him. I don't know. Maybe his barber probably should have given him a little fresh cut. Building my audience naturally. That works.
Right? But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look.
It literally feels like he thinks he's a god now. Like, look at all this power. I have all this power. I am fucking Superman, and if he sees any little bit of just slight that his certainty is going to go away, boy, he's going to put that power on your ass. It is going to be belt to ass with him. I don't know. Maybe his barber probably should have given him a little fresh cut, man. Like, what the fuck? I want to find that part where he was, like, aura farming, because I don't really care about this one. Alright, next. Fucking
Superman, and this is my court. This is my.
Obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered. For a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Yo! So if he sees any little bit of just slight that his certainty is gonna go away, boy, he's gonna put that power on your ass. It is going to be. Yo! He seems like he's looking so good. Wow.
Let the record.
That was pretty good. Giving him a little fresh cut, man. Like, what the fuck is... He seems like he's looking so good. Wow.
Let the record state that
Wow.
Fauci will still have the advice of the other half a dozen attorneys that he brought along today. Senator Peters.
Brother, really...
The COVID-19 pandemic.
Brother, really
is not
just...
supposed- or the widest
Wow,
public health
hold
crisis,
on.
to impact
Go
our
back. I think he did the Squidward walk. That was really good. I love that one. P3. All right, so we'll just watch these until we get a good clip.
People that are facing death threats. This is only going to unfortunately deter other scientific experts.
You just say death threats.
The way that people that are facing death threats.
Bro, how many death threats actually work? I would love to know how many death threats actually work. I swear, everybody now, like, if you get a death threat, I feel like that's like a badge of honor at this point. Like, if you get a death threat, bro, I feel like that's the new somebody ordered pizza to my house. I guess maybe it's like traumatizing at first, but like over time it should feel like a badge. Like, hey, I got a death threat. Okay, how do I say this? Like, if you did something bad and got a death threat, yeah, I would make it like bad. But like, I don't know. If you do something that, you know, could be controversial and you get a death threat, I don't feel like the death threat really goes through. I don't know.
And deluged
with the same. Questions. So on his next campaign or whatever, he could be like, yes, I asked these questions. This is what I could do. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like this is a result of multiple people calling one person, multiple people calling another person that's above him, and then getting above him, and then him being told the same thing.
There are so many legit and deluged with questions to ask Dr. Anthony Fauci. There are so many legitimate questions that deserve answers, and now you're not willing to provide those answers.
So if you call one senator enough, I think you can make any of them go crazy. He looks like he's been called about the same question like a gazillion times. You could kind of like see it. Like you could see it in his face, bro. Like he is so done with the same questions. So on his next campaign or whatever, he could be like, yes, I asked these questions. This is what I could do. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like this is a result of multiple people calling one person, multiple people calling another person that's above him, and then getting above him, and then him being told the same thing.
There are so many legit. And deluged with questions to ask Dr. Anthony Fauci. that there are so many legitimate questions that deserve answers, and now you're not willing to provide those answers.
So if you call one senator enough, I think you can make any of them go crazy. He looks like he's been called about the same question like a gazillion times. You could kind of like see it. Like you could see it in his face, bro. Like he is so done with the same questions. So on his next campaign or whatever, he could be like, yes, I asked these questions. This is what I could do.
So many legitimate questions that deserve answers, and now you're not willing to provide those answers.
So if you call one senator enough, I think you can make any of them go crazy. He looks like he's been called about the same question like a gazillion times. You could kind of like see it. Like you could see it in his face, bro. Like he is so done with the same questions. So on his next of him, and then kind of boring.
Your diaries now show that you actually suffered pulmonary infarction in, I think, probably June 2021. I was just wondering,